fwrdd Velindre University NHS Trust. Dyma'r cyfarfod cyntaf o 2026, felly blwyddyn newydd dda i chi gyd. Dyn ni wedi bod yn cael trafferthion gyda'r Wi-Fi heddiw, felly gobeithio fyddwn ni'n iawn. Ond os ydyn ni ddim, maddeuwch i ni, da ni wedi bod yn treial wneud yn siŵr bod y cysylltiad yn gweithio. Ac maddeuwch i ni hefyd am gychwyn chydig bach yn hwyrach na oedden ni'n bwriadu, ond fe gafon ni ymweliad gan yr ysgrifennydd cabinet bore yma i'r gwasanaeth gwaed, a diolch Alan am edrych ar yn holen ni mor dda fe ath yr ymweliad yn wirioneddol dda, ac oedd y tîm yn y gwasanaeth gwaed yn wych fel arfer. Felly, cyn belled y bod popeth yn gweithio, mae'r cyfarfod yma yn mynd i fod yn fyw heddiw. Croeso i bawb sy'n ymuno â ni rhithiol, ac fe fydd na recording o hwn ar gael ar wefan yr ymddiriedolaeth ar ôl i ni orffen heddiw. Croeso i Bethan Davies sydd yma i wneud yn siŵr bod ni'n gallu trosi o'r Gymraeg i Saesneg fel sydd angen, ac fe bydda i yn newid rhwng y ddwy iaith, achos felly dwi'n dueddol o siarad, felly dyna ni. Felly, os oes yna unrhyw gwestiynau yn ystod y cyfarfod, rhowch eich llaw rhithiol lan a fe ddof i atych chi yn eich tro. Ac os oes yna broblemau gen unrhyw un ar lein ynglyn â'i cysylltiad nhw, a dwi'n credu falle bod na gyda cwpl o bobl, jyst gadwch i ni wybod, ac wrth gwrs cadwch eich camerâu i ffwrdd os di hynny wedi helpu eich cysylltiad chi. Felly, i gychwyn, gai gymryd ymddiheriadau. Ymddiheriadau gen Lindsay Foster, yr is-gadeirydd, gan Nicola Williams, cyfarwyddwr nyrsio, Terry Doyle, un o'n aelodau annibynnol ni, Katrina Furby, a arweinydd Audit Wales i'r ymddiriedolaeth. Oes na unrhyw ymddiheriadau eraill? Nag oes? Nag oes. O iawn. Felly, mae gen i ychydig o bobl i groesawu i'r cyfarfod. Tina Jenkins, croeso, and Tina is here as Interim Deputy Director of Nursing, Quality and Patient Experience for Nicola Williams. David Cogan, welcome David, and thank you for all the work that you have been doing on Patient and Carer Forum, and we're going to hear from you later on in the meeting. Ben, welcome to you. You're a regular attender and we're really pleased to have you here. Also bumped into you in front before our accountability meeting, so that was nice to see a friendly face. And Alison Ramsey, Director of Finance and Corporate Services, will be joining us for item 6.20. I don't think there's anybody else. Have I got everybody? Yes? Okay. So we've got a really tight agenda today. So I am going to assume that everybody has read the papers. So I'm not going to ask anybody to rehearse what's been written down. And I'm going to ask people to be pithy and direct in their questions and observations, please. Before we do that, are there any declarations of interest? In that case, we move on to the minutes. Oh, I should say that Gareth is also on his way, but I believe is stuck in traffic. So he will be joining us as soon as he can manage that. So he's let us know. Thank you, Gareth. Right, let's go through the minutes. Shall we go page by page? Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, and page 12. Excellent. So can we confirm that the minutes held on the 27th of November are an accurate reflection of proceedings? I assume we can. Thank you very much. So that takes us on to the action log. I just want to go through. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 proposed to close. I'll just go through them one by one, just to make sure that if anybody has got any comments or objections to closing these actions, they can contribute. So we'll start with 4.4.0, which is Welsh Language Annual Report. Cancer Patient Tracking List, PTL update. So we've got that on the agenda today, haven't we? That's covered. The VUHST risk register, which is 3.2.0, and then 4.2.0, which is commitments of expenditure exceeding CEO limits, which we have as well, and then trust policies for approval. So we're content to close all those, which leaves us with one open action, which is 7.1.4, which is the revision to Schedule 3 of the trust standing orders. Non, I was wondering whether, in fact, because this is folded into a piece of work, this might also be something that we could close, but I'm going to ask you to just speak to that, please.
Diolch. And I will speak in Welsh. Mi yn y broses o adolygu pwynt gweithredol yma, fe wnes I ar tîm adolygu terms of reference cyfredol. Ac fe wnaethon ni ystyried os oedd ymwybyddiaeth o'r assessment, sef y Quality Impact Assessments, ar y faterion strategol, os oedd ymwybyddiaeth gref o'r angen am rheini yn y bwrdd. Ti'n meddwl bod hwnna'n fater o farn a trafodaeth i'r bwrdd. Fy marn i ydy ein bod ni'n ymwybodol bellach o bwysigrwydd rhain, mae'r agenda heddiw yn dis-di hynny. Ar sail hynny, a'r ffaith ein bod ni nawr yn ymgymeryd darn o waith mwy strategol ar strwythur y bwrddau bwyllgorau, a'r angen ar gyfer ystyriaeth gyflawn o natur y terms of reference ar gyfer y pwyllgorau newydd, fe fydden ni'n awgrymu cau y pwynt gweithredol hwn, ond gyda chadarnhad bod y pwynt yn cael ei ystyried yn y cyd-destun hwnnw. A dwi'n gobeithio bydd y drafodaeth yma yn rhoi y cadarnhad hwnnw. Ond dwi ddim wedi rhoi hwnna i fewn, achos o'n i eisiau just sicrhau eich bod chi'n yn cyd-fynd.
Sylwadau neu cwestiwn unon? No? Mae hynny'n synhwyrol iawn, dwi'n credu, achos mi ydyn ni'n ymrafel efo hwn mewn rhyw ffordd drylwyr iawn. Dwi'n credu bod ni gyd yn ffynion bod hynny yn digwydd, felly diolch yn fawr iawn. Fe gaiwn ni hwnna hefyd.
A fe wna I ddiweddaru'r cofnod fel bod e ar y cofnod gyda ni hefyd.
Diolch. Wedyn, na ni symud ymlaen felly I 1.6.dim, unrhyw faterion yn codi, dim byd gen I. Dwi ddim yn credu unrhyw beth arall. Na, diolch yn fawr. So that takes us on to David. Thank you for being here today. And you are here to provide us with some of your reflections as the chair of the Patient and Carer Partnership Board. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for giving me the opportunity. So I don't know if we've got the slides that. Sorry, so I've sent you a briefing document. So I suppose to try and get me to describe patient carer partnership board, and it's 10 minutes is a bit of an ask, to say the least, I think, because I could talk for hours, but I'll try my best. So the briefing document I sent, and what I wanted to concentrate here was more about what's gone well, not so well, but importantly, does it open a conversation or thought process around the trust board in the opportunities sort of going forward? So if we just look at how I describe what's gone well on the next slide. So we've been, as I say, we've been running now for just over 18 months. We're a small board, 7 active members. Confidence continues to grow. You know, we're volunteers at the end of the day, so to come into an organisation and come into its infrastructure and its process, you know, can be quite daunting. But we're starting to grow our confidence. The real benefit is our agenda that we hold, meetings that we hold each month. We now have a waiting list. So I think previously we would not drag people in, but it wasn't always max. But as I say, we've got a waiting list, which, you know, is success of the group and its awareness across the trust. As I say, with the brand starts to strengthen. We've developed, and we're in a very early stage of a listening post. So that is where members actively spend time in Velindre, just hopefully talking to current patients. So the challenge, isn't it, is as past patients, how do we remain current? And this representation of others rather than our own individual experience or views. We continue to have representation here as Trust Board and charitable funds as a couple of examples. And as I described in the sort of briefing pack, actively involved in a number of projects. So we held our monthly meeting yesterday where, as an example, the pharmacy team came back for the 3rd time where they're building their 5-year strategy. So that's a great example from our perspective, how we're actively involved at a very early stage. And we have that continuity, and we'll stay with the pharmacy team until that strategy is signed off, hopefully. If we then look at maybe what's not gone so well on the next page, we haven't achieved our targets of 12 members, so we've got 7, but we're not overly concerned. So it's about quality rather than quantity. The diversity isn't there, but we've also paused it whilst recognition of Velindre itself went through structure, which leads on to one of the next points, really. We don't have a seat at every table, so our aspiration and our desire and want, if you like, is to be at those tables that are decision-making and good discussion where we represent that patient voice. I've described the new leadership structure within the centre's added complexity to our vision. So from our perspective, the scale of change, I suppose, in terms of senior positions has rightly resulted in people, new people coming in, reflecting on what is currently structure and our involvement and what the new structure could look like. So whilst I describe it as a concern for us in that we're not moving as fast as we'd like to, we clearly recognise why that is the case. We're still often seen as a tick box exercise, so it's getting better, but there's no denying that some people come to us at 11th and 12th hour, and we have the feeling it's to say that they've come to us rather than it is to gather constructive feedback. And we found it difficult to develop a clear structure for the board that's supported across the centre, which is the great opportunity of being here today, just to highlight it, really, that, you know, how can we gain the support of the trust to support us in our objectives that hopefully become your objectives as well. So that leaves on to the opportunities. So, you know, the opportunity, could we agree to a patient engagement involvement on the agenda of forthcoming board trust development day? So in my experience, I'm having lots of individual conversations with people around the table today and outside of this room, and some great ideas and some great thoughts and challenges. What we haven't had at any one point is to bring that all together. So could a trust development board be the platform to have that conversation, to talk about a patient strategy? Where does the trust want to go with it? Just even the subject of who is the patient? Is it the current patient today receiving treatment? What role does a previous patient, such as the members of the patient board, have? What about patients of tomorrow and engagement and education? So it would be good to have that really big discussion and understand from a collective voice from the trust where they see patient involvement, engagement, influence. Could we, resource, so depending, I suppose it all depends on that first one and what the output becomes. But obviously, when we look at patient experience, we have one person. If we talk about Lisa Miller, there was 3, there's 1. So we want to make it bigger, we want to make it stronger, we want to get more involved, but is the infrastructure there to support that? And then obviously supports from specialists, equality and diversity. So when we talk about wanting to grow our membership boards, some of those groups that already exist within the Cancer Centre, how do we engage with them to help us achieve that objective? Then support the embedding of the board representation and key committees, as I say, that seat across the table. Support patient care representation on recruitment. So we have been involved in some recruitment panels, but we'd love to be involved in more, really, to be quite honest. And then as we think about what our role could be outside of the 4 walls as a Velindre, as I described, how can we support Velindre in the wider public engagement involvement programme? So how can we be seen as a vehicle to support Velindre from a still an independent point of view, if that makes sense? So that's my whistle stop tour and ask really of the patient carership board. I'm hoping we've got some time for some questions.
Yes, we have. So let's open it up. Vicky.
Thank you, David. Just really interested in terms of, all the points in terms of the opportunities are really important for us to consider, number one. But in terms of the point of contact for you to be able to move through some of those opportunities, I guess it's not names particularly, but have you got clear links that you can phone and say, actually, what we discussed hasn't happened? Points of escalation so that you can actually see things progressing in terms of involvement.
So I have, however, I would describe that point, they're quite in silent. That's the challenge that I think I face as the chair. Lots of individual subjects, lots of individual conversations, the ability to bring it together and understand that clearer strategy.
So it's much more coordinated. It's
coordinated, yeah. So lots of people I would describe have a responsibility within their roles. Patient. I'm going to be truthfully honest, and I believe I can be. What I struggle to understand is who has the overall accountability.
Yeah.
Because I think lots of people with responsibility think they may have accountability, but I'm unable to establish within the trust who is the person. So one person has accountability, a number of people can have responsibility. I'm probably yet to find that person.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you, David.
Anne?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I think just to that last point, in terms of the governance review, what I've done in previous organisations is been really clear about what the decision-making points were across the structure, and then where patient and carer colleagues could be fed in to that, so we can make the best use of your time and your colleagues' time. And Jazz and I have been having some very interesting conversations about EDI recently, and I think there's some opportunities there that it would be good to speak to you. Also, Nick and I are doing a partnership and equity piece of work with NHS Federation, and I think there's some good elements coming out of that it would be really good to discuss with you as well. And then finally, to be a more practical thing, we did a pain point audit in last May when we just looked at complaints, risks. I can't remember what else it was we looked at, Tina, but it was everything, so we could distill it down. And what that came out with was digital front door communications with the patient. We have got this in our IMTP to do a review next year once we've implemented the outcome of the last one. And it would be really helpful to have patient and carer input into that to give us a real-time dimension or perspective from patient and carers at that point. So I'd like to suggest that, if I may.
Great.
Thank you, Chair.
Andrew?
Thank you, and thank you, David, for all you've done and continue to do for Velindre. You mentioned resource on one slide. What resource do you have, and further, what resource do you think you will need to really embed yourselves within the organisation?
So I say we've got the patient engagement manager, so that's our go-to resource. So in terms of admin, minutes, that sort of infrastructure, if you like, we haven't got any of that. We manage it ourselves. So understanding, I suppose, where the patient care partnership board, at the moment we seem to sit outside and we're self-sufficient to a certain degree. If we were to become integrated and we understood those channels, I'm making an assumption here that resource would be freely available to us. So we don't know what we don't know to some degree. Not quite sure it answers the question in the detail you're looking for.
No, it's helpful for me just to help people understand what could be done to improve, and part of that could be, of course, resource.
Yeah.
Extra resource.
Tina?
Me and David, multiple conversations, David and me, in meetings and talking about how we can align experience and engagement, and we've got that on the agenda a bit later on. But I think, some of the things we talked about is how make sure your terms of reference is up for review, isn't it? But how do we look after the members?
Yeah.
So the listening meetings you're proposing us, really positive in terms of reaching out to people for their views, but mindful these people may have been through that themselves or family members. So making sure we've got a real infrastructure to look after your members as well, through that process. So maybe we can think about that, and I know your lead would do that, but have we got a clear kind of pathway that you supported as, as part of our organisation, isn't it? Because
Absolutely,
impact on your board members, isn't it? So let's make sure we factor that in.
Yeah.
Okay. Lauren, none, and then I'm going to sum this up.
Yeah, and I haven't had a chance to feedback yet to colleagues from the discussion we had yesterday evening as well. So we had a really good discussion on partnerships and what that meant and priorities for the board in that respect. And we went on to talk more about portfolio, I guess, than I was expecting, but it was really useful. So I don't know if did you want to feedback as to where we got to?
Yeah, so this is another interesting angle, isn't it? Lauren came to speak to us about her role, and it was about partnerships. We got into the conversation, sort of external partnerships, and of course, then it turned to the subject of the patient care partnership board. So you go into that conversation about where do we sit and where's our identity and where's our purpose. So it was another example of an individual, somebody coming to talk to us in silo, that then opens up, wasn't it, a conversation that says, well, what's the scale and scope for this board? But bringing it back to the fact at the moment, we need purpose, we need strategy, we need an identity. And I think we need a home, because at the moment we haven't got one.
And we were, practical perspective, so it doesn't answer that question, but then from a practical perspective, saying actually the prioritisation of change that we will go through, that we are going through in terms of our portfolio of change, actually that should be an integral mechanism for the patient and carer board, because you can input into that prioritisation process, but then also look at the changes over the next year and help to plan your work programme. So actually we really want to be involved in shaping that. We want to spend our time on also see that laid out. So we'll continue to work up that sort of practical mechanism. As well.
Yeah, just finally, I just want to thank David, because his support and dedication to this has meant that it's maintained momentum since the board signed off its patient engagement strategy in 2022. The time is right to review that now. and the structures, crucially, as Andy referred to, that sit underneath. The accountability, the link into the centre in particularly is not where it needs to be. We all recognise that, but actually what we need to do is sit down and work out what that should look like in future and ensure that there is the appropriate support for the coordination of this. I mean, we know that the breadth of what it's doing right now is vast, and we're not really in a space where that's being coordinated as effectively as it could because of resource issues. But once we start to bring portfolio and alignment of future priorities into that as well, it grows. And so we need to reflect that in the structures that we put in place to support it on the basis of your thinking around it, crucially. So throughout, we should be patient-led rather than try and squeeze the patient care board into our own kind of structures. So it will, I think, challenge the way we think about support and structures at the same time. So just something for us to keep in mind as we come to the later item on the patient donor voice.
Yes, thank you all very much. So you provoked, a lot of thinking, which is extremely valuable. And from my perspective, the points about looking at this holistically and strategically are absolutely right, because we have the valuable work you do. We've got the work that we have with charities which represent patients. We've got the volunteers. We've got, various pieces of work where we have fantastic access and potential to really understand how we can be as good as we can be for patients. And it's about being, well, we can't do all of it, so we need to be focused. Okay, what have we got? What do we want to achieve? And where does the board sit in that? And where does everything else sit together? So I think what Non is saying is that patient engagement strategy is probably out of date now.
Yeah.
It's 3 years old and it's a very different world. So as part of looking at our governance review and the work that's going on, and by the way, in terms of the Welsh Blood Service, I think there's probably, quite a lot we can learn from Welsh Blood Service's engagement with donors, which is really very, very impressive. So there's some learning across the organisation that hasn't happened already. So if we put on our to-do list, really thinking about how we make that strategy fit for purpose and refresh it and what we need to actually make it work. And I'll hand over to you guys to tell us, how we timetable that and where it sits within the organisation, because there's also a lot of change around that. But thank you, and thank the rest of the team for me.
Yep, opportunity. Thank you.
That's on to my report, which I will take as read, but I will pick up on a couple of things. In terms of the meetings with independent members, thank you everybody. And we have touched on objectives and so on to tidy those up for the rest of this year and get ourselves ready for next year. I now have a date for my annual appraisal with the Cabinet Secretary, and I will share what is being asked of me. I got that at, I think, the 2nd of March. So we're in preparation for that, and it's helpful to see. Obviously, there will be a fresh set of objectives to follow. And then also I wanted to really pick up on the NWSSP Governance and Accountability Report. So since this was written, we have had a number of things happen. We've had communication from Welsh Government who want to set up an implementation group with active involvement of Welsh Government. Tracy Myhill and I have also contributed to a discussion amongst the chair's peer group on how we facilitate the partners in the partnership being part of that. because that's also crucial, and it actually covers quite a lot of the recommendations. And then Tracy, Carl, Neil and I sat down earlier this week to go through the recommendations and to work through what we felt were the things that were for Velindre, what are the things for the partnership, what are the things for Welsh Government. And obviously Velindre has a role as the hosting organisation and as an equal partner in the partnership. And we've had a first stab at prioritising some of that, and it makes it feel a lot more focused and contained, I think, because we've got some clear governance and legal areas that we need to cover quickly. And as Gareth helpfully reminded us at our IANS meeting, we've done quite a lot of work on that, so we can actually bring that to bear. But they did leave us alone until the accountability meeting, so we literally have been doing that this week. So just to bring you up to date with that. And then on the accountability meeting, again, this came after everybody was away for Christmas and New Year. So we had a very intensive couple of weeks preparing. And it's actually been, from my perspective, a really useful exercise in getting us to think, really think about who we are and what we do, where the areas of risk are, and where the areas of, real excellence and potential for development and growth are. And I mean, we were all really nervous going in there, I have to say. It was like going into an exam. But we were told we came across as a team. Everybody played their role, and everybody was on top of their brief, which is absolutely excellent. And I think that our challenge, if you like, was how do you build on what you've got now? Where do you go next? Which is exciting. So yes, thank you very much. And what I have asked the team to do is to pull together a debrief session for us, so that we can, while it's still relatively fresh, capture what landed well and we need to do more of, where are the areas where we need assurance, where are the areas of ambition, and that is a really good basis, I think, for looking strategically at what might happen. And we're doing that ahead of an election, so that is the update on those things. So I don't know if there are any questions on anything that I've written or just said, or whether that's pretty straightforward. Yes? Okay, good. I'm going to hand over to Carl now then, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So again, take the report as read. Just describes a busy, enjoyable and pretty positive period for the Trust. So and thanks to the team and everybody else who's been part of that. Things I think just pick out. The first is BECS. The GPI contract is really significant in terms of, first of all, supporting a resilient blood supply across Wales. And as important, really enabling superpower in our service transformation now going forward, particularly on the end-to-end things we've described. And some of the things Alan and the team superbly talked about to the Cabinet Secretary this morning. It's really proud actually to listen to the amazing staff in our organisation describing things to the Cabinet Secretary. He didn't appreciate it. He did ask, when we said world leaders, he double checked. So we are doing things on a global stage. It was really great to hear. It was amazing. So that really does support us going to that next level.
And remind us what BECS stands for those.
Blood Establishment Computer System. I was just checking me there, make sure I knew.
It's incredibly important, isn't it? It's fundamentally important.
It is. Yeah. So everyone involved, and also special mention to Carl Taylor and the digital team as well, because it's been a real team effort. So thanks for that. But really important, hard yards. We got into a bit of legal matters, but just that's the first one. Second point you made, Chair, not to repeat what you've said, but the performance accountability meeting, first time across Wales, all organisations have had to do that. As you said, I think we gave a good account of ourselves, and importantly, I think what we were able to do, impact, make a difference on health and healthcare across Wales and outcomes for patients. So I think that was important. And lastly, I think my reflection on the report, drawn out some themes. So the first theme for me, it started to offer a future direction and work programme, didn't it? Because we've talked about ambition and opportunity, and our role as a trust with specialist services being blood and cancer. And the challenge to us and to ourselves is really what more can we do in health and across the healthcare system. So that was the first real thematic piece. And the second piece, I think, in terms of the theme of what's in there, to enable us to do that successfully, you've got to really focus on effective leadership, culture, great place to work, and agile, proportionate governance arrangements. So for me, it was an opportunity to show and give assurance about what we are doing, but starts to point to the future. So I think it was really quite exciting. So those are my reflections on the last 2 or 3 minutes.
Questions or comments? No. I spent the afternoon yesterday in the cancer centre, and well, we've got some really, really great people who've been with us a long time, but also have just joined us. And it re-emphasised to me just how much we've got to get done now to move into the new hospital in terms of ways of working and getting ready. So there's a very, very intensive period ahead of us where, you know, and I know we're now, you know, at NVCC, we are bringing that readiness piece in, but it's incredible. Carl, your team, the digital team, there's a crucial role for you to play there. I think we need to think about what more we can do to, you know, bring an emphasis on that and to support you. And the same with the workforce side and supporting that team in making change. So I think that lays the foundation for what Carl is talking about, really. Because if we can do that, and it's not long now, so there's a real, you know, there's a real sense of urgency about it, and I think the board is keen to see that and keen to hear, you know, what do we need to do to have lots of those challenges around, for instance, digital and IT enablement and changes in ways of working, because I think that's really at the heart of the credibility for us, moving ahead, because, you know, everything is dependent on us being really strong at our core. So perhaps as an act, think about how we sort of perhaps increase the visibility of that at the board between now and when we move in, and the readiness and capture that as an action.
Yeah. So just give a quick update, because I think we all agree, really helpful timing actually, because yesterday we had our first, we're still working out the proper title, but we call it our readiness board, exactly that. So we've got 3 different parts of the overall service. We've got the building, which obviously Mark Trump is responsible for. Commission the building, clinical commission the building, then transforming the service. So what we've done, we've set that board up to bring that all together as a single piece and addressing some of the conversation we've been having with the NVCC committee. So what we're absolutely committed to do is to transforming the service and also moving into a building. It's not moving from A to B, it's about working in a different way. So when we arrive, we're in the new building, but it's a part of our overall service direction rather than just moving from A to B. So that set up yesterday. And what we've committed to do, as Gareth knows, we would be bringing back to the March NVCC committee an overall master plan with all those key milestones, impacts, outcomes. And again, Chair, if you want to bring that to board, we can work out how that's best made visible at the board. But I think it's really good timing. We're also very clear. I think, not right, but it's approximately 66 weeks. So we're on a very clear timeline and we're very focused.
Yeah.
And we will make sure that the board has every piece of information required.
Well, good, because I think, first of all, IMTP, you know, needs to be very clear in the IMTP. Secondly, I think for the board, maybe not the same thing as NVCC has, but at a higher level in terms of and any discussion around any real sticking point areas where the organisation as a whole needs to coalesce around that change, rather than having the same thing going to both committees. It's more about, you know, what do we need to put some strategic and operational push behind? You know, where are the biggest opportunities and the biggest threats? Where are the things that we can agree to perhaps put on the slightly longer term to-do list, so that this board can unlock that and be assured that so maybe have a think about how that fits. So non and then T.
Just to add to that, Chair, during our discussions yesterday, we discussed not only the need to report on the milestones by March, but actually outlined the position on paper to the February NVCC committee. Through the highlight report, we'll be able to inform the board about those arrangements. So as part of our review of governance, but also as we're putting the arrangements for the readiness board in place, we are also discussing the reporting lines so that they're clear and also noted, so that everybody be assured that they deliver against the concerns that have been raised now for a while.
Yes,
by Trust Board members.
That's really helpful, and I would ask that those sticking points are the things that we.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Tina.
Just a question really in terms of there's a change obviously in how the readiness group is setting up, but is that going to change the underneath structures in terms of engaging with staff? Because as exciting as it is, transformational change on the new hospital is quite daunting as well for staff, isn't it? And, you know, I've heard staff saying, you know, I'll see out until the new hospital comes and all of that. So what does that mean in terms of, you know, how we're going to communicate that through the workforce? So it's really exciting, isn't it, to have the new hospital? But the transformational stuff will generally make people sometimes feel excited and worried, isn't it, as to what does that mean, you know?
Yeah. Sarah?
Yeah, and so there is a work stream that will sit and report to the readiness board, looking at the workforce, looking at the culture, actually, in terms of how day one is a great place to work, and the day 365 continues to be as well. And that space is co-chaired by Kate and Anne, the director of the council services, to ensure they lead the staff so that we work together to ensure that we manage that appropriately. We'll connect with our trade union partners in that respect to ensure we've got the right partnership there, and connect with our staff to ensure that it's a co-created journey, and engagement will be a core part of that.
All right.
And just to add, because we haven't explicitly referenced it yet, readiness clearly includes us as a board. So we've got support services and MIM readiness that I'm leading with Mark Ash and Jason for commercial and then estates and facilities. But part of that is, you know, from April 27, we have our annual service payment of 35 million that we are responsible for as a board in terms of that oversight. And, you know, a number of us know the payment mechanism inside out, having built it over a couple of years. But there are lots of people who around the table who won't be aware of that, and we're building into that training program. Well, we're planning the training program at the moment with support from DLA, Python, for instance, but also lessons learned from other PFI. The role of the board in those experiences. So that will be part of our readiness over the next year as well.
Thank you, Lauren. I think that's absolutely crucial, and it is also something that we need proper visibility of.
Yes,
because, you know, if we don't get that right, that also is a bit of a showstopper, as we know from some of the PFIs that we've seen in England.
we don't want to cram like for an exam right at the end. We give ourselves time to revise and clue up over the next year.
That's a really good point. Thank you very much. So can I ask then that you bring back to the next board how, Anne, sorry.
So it was just from Tina's point really. So I think the conversations with staff and colleagues across the piece, across those delivery pathways, we've got a hub and spoke model now. We're evolving that hub and spoke model around the new hospital and outreach and the other satellite units. So it is a clinical and operational service change. That's how it's been described in the service. So I think it's important that we reflect it that way. And I think in our narrative to staff, we will, rather than a transformational change, because that almost seems like it's not attainable in the here and now. And they are engaged in that, and it's how we keep people engaged in that.
I think that's right. And if it's user-led, because they are the people who are going to have to use it. So, you know, designing the ways of working and the systems, it has to be around and with the individuals who are going to be actually doing it. Otherwise, you know. Yes. Okay. So if you could please report back at the next board as to how the board is going to really keep on top of this. Then that would be very helpful. Thank you very much. That takes us into quality, safety and performance. And we're asked to note this, obviously always a key part of the agenda. Carl, are you going to lead us into this, please?
Yeah, very
and
quickly.
Through it.
Yeah, as you say, taking as read, I'll just perhaps pass across to Anne first of all, just for some remarks on overall performance, and then we'll go through the usual structure.
Okay, thank you. So the PMF has changed a lot over the last year or 18 months. What we're trying to do is reflect as we go along the various changes that are being made. Additionally, VCS has reported a clinical standard, which is the 21-day standard for oncology. Those clinical standards have been revised in the last period nationally. So they've been more nuanced. Patients are divided into 3 categories, P1, P2, or P3, that are set out in the report. And I appreciate that it could be more user-friendly in terms of the read, and we will do some further work on that to make it more easily digestible. It's as we go through the committees that we get the feedback, and I suspect we're a little bit too close to wood for the trees at the moment. The other key point for us, which is a challenge, is that we as an oncology cancer centre have a responsibility for some of this SCP, suspected cancer pathway. There's about 200 patients a month that are referred to us on an SCP pathway. At the moment, we report our performance against the clinical standards, but we encompass all our patients together in one place. So one of the things we're working on is separating those out. The national standard for cancer is the SCP, the 62-day standard, and we have a ownership in some of that. So you will see that coming through. It is a challenge for us in terms of our reporting structures because we don't easily identify patients at the front end on an SCP. So colleagues in Data and Insight are helping us a lot to that. We are managing patients on an SCP pathway and we're very clear who they are. But we need to reflect that in the performance report, and you will see that coming through as we go through the coming months. We've talked with clinical colleagues in the tumour sites about how best to do that, and our new general managers are engaged in that process as well. So this data is all of our data, it's all of our cancer patients, SCP, and what in England is called subsequent treatment patients. So it's all the patients that we treat, but we will separate that out. After that, I'll just open to questions and I can pick up any other points as we go through.
Thank you, Anne. Any questions on this part of the report? So start, you've got your hand up, but I presume that's not right. Jazz?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to explain a little bit more around the single cancer pathway SCP bit that Anne was talking about. This is referring to patients where we are providing the first definitive treatment. So that might be chemotherapy for a breast cancer patient, it might be radiotherapy for a head and neck patient. And the reason I'm mentioning this, or what the point that I wanted to make around this, is that because our treatments are becoming more and more successful in non-surgical oncology, then this number of patients that we are responsible for that first definitive treatment is going to increase with time. And what we want is the visibility about how are we doing, because in a sense, we need to pay attention to this particular group to make sure that we are not adding to the delay in their overall pathway. So that's what we're trying to do. At the same time, we must not do it to the detriment of all our other patients, because every single patient is important and we need to keep a track on how long they are waiting. So I think we need to manage this in a way that doesn't give the wrong sort of sense of priority, but it's more about visibility and us holding ourselves to account on that particular group. I hope that helps, because I'm not sure if it's been clear to people and we could put that narrative in. Thank you.
Thank you, Jazz. Gareth?
Diolch Cadeirydd. Yn gynta, maddeuwch i fi am fod yn hwyr yn cyrraedd trafferth gyda'r traffig ar y traffod.
Is i ymddiheuro'r rhan chi, achos fe gafon i neges chi. Diolch yn fawr, Gareth.
Y pwynt o'n i am godi oedd, mae yna 12 KPI sydd heb gael eu cyrraedd, heb gael eu cwrdd yn mis Tachwedd. A yw'r rhif yna yn uwch na'r arfer y misoedd eraill? Ac os yw oes na reswm arbennig am hwnna, neu just digwyddiad yw e?
Gofyn i Ann ateb y cwestiwn yna.
So it's not higher than previous months. What we're doing in this month is we're reporting differently to comply with changed clinical standards, or augmenting the clinical standards, and beginning to separate out so that we can move into reporting the SCT and the other aspects of the cancer pathways. What we're also doing in the background is we're shadow monitoring with previous months, so we can tell whether our performance is dipping in any way, shape or form.
Vicky?
Thank you. Just a couple of questions, if I may, one on radiotherapy and one on SACT. It's just the boxes that you put which highlight the risks and the actions for the following month. What I wasn't clear about, because you've got scheduled and urgent symptom control, I wasn't clear on the actions that we were actually going to be taking. So I think just for the next report, because we see this alternate months,
Yes.
just clear that what are the actions that we're taking that are going to make a difference on those two areas going forward. And you don't need to respond now, but it's just on paper, it'd be incredibly helpful to see that pulled out, highlighted.
So the actions that apply to specific things.
Yes, where we're not meeting, the targets at the moment.
Yes.
And I think in terms of SACT, you reference workforce shortages and reduced oversight. I wasn't clear what roles we were referencing and where we're at with that recruitment.
Yeah, so it is the SACT bookers that is causing us the big problem at the moment.
Okay.
Bookers, the booking team for SACT. So there's a couple of different things that we're doing there. We're reviewing all the processes that are happening. We're automating a number of them. We're moving any specialist tasks the SACT booking team are currently doing, or non-specialist tasks the SACT booking team are currently doing, so that they can focus on the thing they need to do that requires their expertise. And then Sarah's team are helping us with workforce planning. So it's I say it's a two-pronged attack, but it's more than that.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you, Anne.
So if I can ask then, you're saying, we've got shadow reporting so that we know old with old as well as the new. Can the board expect to see continued changes in the way that we are monitoring performance?
So we've got the clinical standards will remain now going to.
Yeah.
The bit that we'll do is we will separate out the cancer patients into SCP and subsequent treatments, and then we will apply those clinical standards to those core group.
So the answer is it's a fixed point now. So once we go forward, those standards will be fixed, and this is it, and then we can see consistency reporting. So that's
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, shall we move on?
Chair, sorry.
Oh,
Radiotherapy, the performance, does that include both Velindre and Neville Hall
Yes.
as an overall? Is there a benefit in separating performance? Is one better than the other? Is there anything to learn, or is it the scale is so different?
So in terms of this report, it's brought together. But in terms of the local review, it's separated out because we look at performance per LINAC.
Right.
The difference is the 2 Linacs that have gone into Neville Hall are the most up-to-date Linacs that we have in our fleet. And we have got a plan for how we're starting with common cancers at the satellite unit, and then we'll move to more complex patients.
Carl, is it on this?
Just to add, yeah, that's a great question, David. I think we've got to make sure this is about a radiotherapy service delivered in different locations. I think the main advantage of the satellite centre is additional capacity to treat patients quicker, but ultimately when we get to the end point, it's about improving access and reducing inequalities. So I think that's the thing we need to measure then, about both in terms of ethnicity, time to travel, gender. So I think we should see them as a service, but we do, as Anne said, have the different splits to understand where we can learn across that service.
Gareth, is that an old hand? Okay, fine, thank you very much. Okay. Blood service?
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm open to question on that one. Self-explanatory.
So for which section now?
blood, sorry, blood, yeah, blood service.
Anything?
I think just that I was interested in, you mentioned though, Anne, was just in terms of the incident closures that the WVS section talks about. It was saying about the lead nurse position and that it was anticipating improvements in the performance as a result of that recruitment. What it left me thinking is, because we've got so many professionals within Welsh Blood Services, I'm surprised that we haven't given somebody an opportunity to step into what looking at incidents is a clinical role that any of those professional clinical roles could do. So it was really just whether we can identify some of that in this report, because waiting for a lead nurse role seemed a little bit lagging behind as a result.
I have more detail on those and the outcomes from those. There's currently the quality team is led by a professional, and there are others involved. I think what we mean by the lead nurse role is it's an additional individual with a slightly different lens, perhaps, that will help us maybe align it more with what we see in the cancer centre, and that level of review. I don't want to add anything to that, Tina, in terms of that lead role.
Yeah, I think the new role will have more of a place on SLT, so we'll have more of a kind of joined up overview in terms of quality and safety governance, really, I suppose.
So it's going to have more focus on that quality, safety and governance piece.
David?
Sorry, could I ask a question on the person-centred? You talk about percentage of patients, rating of experience is at 90, which is 96. In terms of the total number that we have that generates that, historically it's been quite a low number. I just was interested to understand how many responses generate 96%.
Sorry, I don't have those numbers to hand. I'll have to.
Maybe we can provide that to committee.
Yeah, I can provide you the numbers in our quality report. We provide exact numbers. Welsh Blood Service have got a higher percentage because of the nature of the service. Cancer Service, that is one of our focuses, is increasing our capability and capacity to collect people's feedback. It is a small percentage in terms of the number of patients that we see, and that's certainly one of the plans in terms of improving the feedback that we get. But I can give you those exact numbers outside of committee.
Okay, great, thank you.
My chair. I think it'd be important to track that. So if we are going to change a strategy, if we're going to improve our patient experience, tracking the baseline right now so that we can come back and evidence improvement would be key. So I would suggest actually including that in the report from now on, so that we have that baseline.
Okay, so there's no other questions on the two main services. We're going to Sarah for people and culture.
So I'm going to assume the details are read, recognising seasonal changes in some of the key metrics which we would usually expect. All I'm going to focus on is highlighting to the board that this now looks slightly different. We've increased the metrics and information that we're providing to give a much more holistic view of the experience of our staff, better understanding. That's created some good discussions for us within the committee structure, and really focusing on giving us a better opportunity. This will continue to grow
and I'm happy to take any questions if you've got any questions about the detail.
Vicky.
Thank you. Really just around sickness. It's one of the KPIs that we look at in QSP, but I think it's just that recurringly there isn't an impact thus far.
No.
And it's actually yes, we're in winter and there's a seasonal impact, but this is fairly consistent across the years. So what actions are you confident that we've got the actions in place to drive improvements?
Yeah, so where we've got some of the indicators that are going slightly up, we've taken a new approach, for example, in terms of supporting a Velindre Cancer Service, proactively in managing that. That's about increased accessibility to data to help us be more proactive in terms of that. And it's also about encouraging, coaching, training our managers to be able to manage this effectively. We've had training programs in place. What we're learning is that coaching, personal touch becomes much more important and impactful. The Cancer Service has asked us to come in most recently, my deputy did a programme of work with them to try and see if we can shift some of this. That's about impacting some of our larger spaces. On another space in terms of our sickness in WBS, that's very much often within certain groups of staff. For example, Alan came to the QSP committee talking about the challenge with that, with some of our collections in terms of the role and the impact of the role, what that means in terms of our staff well-being. So the focus there would be on supporting in a different way. So what we're seeking to do is to try to ensure, rather than just a standard approach for all services, trying to better understand what really is the challenge we're facing in each of our services and looking to support in the most appropriate way.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so no, that we'll just hop across the quality on digital.
Yes, thank you, Carl. The first thing to note, I think, is in the top left-hand corner is the major incidents. So for the first time, certainly while I've been in the trust, we've now hit the target for that, which is 6 in a rolling 12-month period. 6 is clearly too many, but there's really good partnership with Digital Health and Care Wales to be able to drive that number down, and we are seeing that sustained through the latest data. I'm really pleased with that. In terms of the requests and incidents, we're in the right place, and customer user satisfaction with the service continues to be high. We did see a very slight dip as we were just completing the Windows 10 to 11 rollout, which is now a very good place. In terms of your point earlier, Chair, about the MVCC digital, we do recognise in the capacity and demand, and we are still making good progress with our digital diagnostic, which gives me the capabilities and the capacity to be able to address those challenges. But I would also say we've had great collaboration with the service, with VCS, with Kate, and with Anne and others to help us shape that plan. So I think we've got a lot to do over the next year, but we are starting off in a good shape. Just to close the loop on Bex as well, I know we highlighted that in the Chair's report. So I spent the last 2 days at the Welsh Blood Service with GPI, the new supplier, doing the launch of that programme, and that went very well. So just to report that back here.
Any questions? It's just a question from me in terms of that work you're doing to get us into NVCC. Is there something that could be added to this report that would give us an idea about how that's going?
Yeah, I think we can bring it out of it, because I think the intent is that we'll also bring it through the NVCC
yes.
as well. But happy to add some extra.
It's so that we can elevate it and have a bit of a focus on the digital element of that, because it's so important to us. So if you could give some thought to how best that was reflected in this report, and then you can have your own slot on that in this report if you like, because the rest will be folded into a broader readiness.
But with Carl and the execs to make sure we get.
Got Gareth and then Hilary.
Diolch Cadeirydd. Os rwy'n cofio'n iawn, un o'r problemau gwasanaeth digidol yn y gorffennol oedd fod dim digon o bobl gyda ni ag dim digon o adnoddau. Di hwnna ddim yn ymddangos o'r adroddiad yma, sydd yn dda mewn un ffordd, mae'r gwasanaeth yn gweithio'n effeithiol, ond yw hwnna yn dal yn broblem yn y gwasanaeth digidol?
Yeah, if we triangulate this, so I think we've got the digital services and then the risks. We are still talking about the capacity challenge. When we look at the trust risk register, that's still quite a high risk for us, but we are doing things about it. Let's say Paul and I and others have been to the Welsh Government and talking through what we need to strengthen the team for the MVCC digital. We're bringing more resources to do that. So it's still an active concern for us, but we are working hard to mitigate it. I wouldn't say that we're through that capacity challenge yet.
On this?
Yeah, just to add to that point. So yeah, I mean, I think as Carl has described, there's a forever digital need, isn't there, which is capacity capability. And Carl's referenced the broader piece of work about how do we set ourselves up going forward. There's also a specific piece of work, back to the chair's encouragement earlier, but we've got to land the hospital on time, so on and so forth. So in that space, we've got funded resources, as you're well aware, Gareth, in the FBCs, as Carl has referenced. In October, we also put additional proposal to the Welsh Government based off the work that Atos had done for us when they come in and review where we were against best practice, so on and so forth. So I've met numerous times with government. In principle, they support it. Now, until that's actually given to us, we don't have it. But what we are doing, and Matt and I are doing another piece of work with them, that's going to the end of the week. Then we will hopefully get that additionality for the digital piece. And it's not just Carl's team, and Nick's not here today, but it's also about clinical and medical leadership roles, because we know that it's not digital, it's got to be service-led, digitally supported. So we've got in there approximately about £1 million worth of additional resource we're seeking just to fund that. And in principle, government have agreed with that. So I think we are moving on that to make sure that we have all the firepower we need to deliver the NVCC. There's a different conversation with the board then about how and where we choose to invest whatever the resources we have to. So I think there's more we can do internally, but I suspect there will also be a need for some additionality. But I think we're trying to make sure that we focus on the job in hand right now versus how and what we need to do in the sort of medium to long term. And as soon as we get that feedback from Welsh Government, we'll circulate that around the board in advance of the next meeting.
Hilary?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for my camera being off, but as you know, there are technical issues today that makes it easier for me to hear everything with the camera off. But I just wanted to give some assurance to the board that digital does come to NVCC at the moment. So we are cited on that project about moving the new service into the new cancer centre. But once the new arrangements are in place and the reporting structure in March, and following the setup of the readiness board, there will be even more focus, more visibility on it then. I just wanted to give that assurance.
Thank you, Hilary. That's really helpful. Thank you very much.
Okay, so if there are no other questions on digital, we'll move on to Fresh with Lauren.
Thank you, Carl. So it continues to be solid, good performance across the KPIs in the report across the domains. Just want to mention 3 quick things. So we had a good discussion in Quality Safety and Performance Committee on a matter that's been raised during the period that will come through in the March reporting, which was an escalation to the Health and Safety Executive from one of our staff in WBS collections about the weight of the trolleys that the collections teams have to move around. And that's been addressed and closed with HSE during the period, and say that will come through the next reporting, and Alan and I spoke to that in the committee. Secondly, just to note, for those not at Audit Committee, the Audit Wales are performing a review of the estates across functions across NHS organisations. And ours is coming up, so we've signed that brief off this week, and it's a really extensive piece of audit work. So in terms of further assurance to the board over the next few months, that will be reported in May, June time. And thirdly, just to note, we are continuing to review the metrics that we have in the PMF, and that's very much led by feedback and engagement with the teams we serve. Particularly the new general managers and directorate triumvirates in the cancer service. Our team are really enjoying and having those new teams to work with, because they're very capable, good people and very, very engaged. So we're responding to some of their, responding to their requests of the information that they would find most useful. And we'll clearly continue to get feedback from the board, particularly Hilary, in our ongoing meetings with her as a state site.
Great, thank you very much. Vicky?
Thank you, Lauren. It was just really on the fire safety, because it's one of the areas that QSP and the board have been concerned about, that it's the low compliance continues with the fire safety. I guess with the new leadership team in place at divisional level, but also at corporate and this board, what actions are going to be taken to make sure that we improve that? Because it's that as well as the evacuation drills and exercises, that both those areas.
Yes, thank you. So we will be bringing through the 26-27 plan in more detail to the March Quality Safety and Performance Committee when we have our highlight report due there. So it will be a specific appendix, because we've recognised that it's been an ongoing, and so in short, it explains the engagement that we've been doing with the teams and all the training that's already now in place for 26-27, which is different to previous years, and that's the level 2 face-to-face training that certain staff need, and then the ongoing requirement for everyone is picked up as part of general attitudes that mandatory training across all the modules that we will need to do. So so that we're continue to work with Sarah's team on that. And one of our improvements we will be making to the reporting here is there's obviously the focus on drills and training, but what we don't report at the moment here is the actual fire risk assessments, the ongoing programme of them and the outcome of those, which we review very regularly and monthly in our team, but we're not actually showing that here. So what's the outcome of the training?
It gives a wider picture.
Yeah, exactly. So that will start to come through as well.
Lovely. Thank you.
Okay, so no other questions. We move to Matt, just on the financial performance.
Thanks, Carl. So the slide deck in the performance framework sets out the key financial targets, which are all still on track within this financial year to be delivered in terms of revenue balance within our capital resource payment policy, and then the 2 additional ministerial targets or requirements around delivering our savings plans and agency spend. So I just need to apologise because there's been a mix up in our admin processes around the full report we've normally append, and it's not in the pack. With the chair's permission, I'd like to circulate that to the board after the meeting, if that's okay. It just gives you more information that's required under the standing financial instructions. And we'll also obviously put that on the public papers that go up on. Apart from that, I'll take questions. And the only other thing, saying the quality safety performance highlight report, I won't give you a forward look because it gives you quite a good summary of the latest draft financial plan that was discussed in quality safety around iteration 2 for the IMTP for next year.
Yes. Any questions? No. Can I just ask? Well, I've got a couple of questions really. One is the level of confidence in delivering the savings plan, given the risks associated with not doing that. And secondly, the cost pressures. There's been a lot of discussion, for instance, about the Welsh risk pool and commissioners. However, it's obviously one of a number of significant unexpected cost pressures.
So the in-year savings plan will be delivered. There is an element that was meant to be recurrent that isn't. As I've said before, that then means bigger ask for next year, clearly, because that gets carried forward as a recurrent issue, added to other recurrent cost pressures. I've got a plan at the moment for next year that enables us to balance over the 3 years, but it has got a 3% 0.7 million savings target, and the teams are working on putting those together. In terms of the pressure, it's a smaller pressure, but it relatively is the same for us.
Although we do have really good feedback in terms of Welsh Trust Pool, in terms of our learning. That does impact actually an element of the premium you have to pay into the pool. So if you're implementing your learning within the timescales, there's an element of the formula of what you have to contribute that reflects that. We do well, which is for all the service teams that implement the changes, and the team, the quality of safety team, do a good load of work on that. But it is a pressure, but it's built into the plan. And obviously, it's one of the areas that the £1 million the Welsh Government have given us is used to fund those sorts of unavoidable cost pressures.
Any questions? No. In that case, we are going to take Vicky, sorry.
Not on the finance. It was just as an overall to the PMF, because we discussed in QSP. It slightly misled me when I was sort of chairing the discussion, because actually when we say the levels of assurance, there's a couple of areas which have changed, and I was assuming it meant the change was from the previous month, which wasn't the case. I think, Lauren, you were saying one was quite a few months ago. Right. So it'd be really helpful for the board to be cited on that the last change. So if it hasn't changed for the last month, it would be, for me, it would be no change. But actually, if it's changed from the last couple of months, then there's an indication made that it's changed, so that we can discuss why and the issues in QSP, but also here, just so it's a bit more transparent. It would just be helpful. Thank you.
We'll look at that next time. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So we'll take 10 minutes, come back at 5 to get some food outside. So I think we can sort of quickly have some food, but also bring some back in with us, and I think we'll allow ourselves some more food when we actually finish. Get over, yes, just a bit challenging for the
Forces.
It does, yes, that's right. Because I'm pudding on. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We'll be back at 5:02. Thanks, on. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for being so prompt. So we move now into the risk register, and I'm going to ask Non to take us through this, please.
Diolch yn fawr. Fe fyddai yn gryno. Fe gawson ni drafodaeth dda yn y pwyllgor QSP ynglyn â'r gofrester gyfredol. Yn bennaf, fe wnaethon ni drafod risg 3751 sydd bellach wedi chau yn sgil y drafodaeth honno.
We can hear the translation.
Oh, we can't hear the translation. Can you not hear me?
Anyone here?
Oh, okay, no problem. Oh, yeah. Ydyn ni'n iawn? Yn iawn, Vicky?
Not yet.
Ti'n arall?
Oh, yeah.
Popeth yn iawn, da iawn. Felly, fe gathon ni drafodaeth da yn QSP ynglyn â'r gofrester risg. Fe drafodon ni'n benodol gynnwys risg 3751 sydd ar y gofrester o'ch blaenau chi heddiw, ond sydd rhwng y ddau gyfarfod wedi chau o ganlyniad i'r pwyntiau gweithredu sydd wedi cael ei ystyried gan y perchnogion o risg honno. Ac fe wnaethon ni hefyd drafod risg 3832 SACT, a maddeuwch i mi, dwi'n mynd i orfod cyfeirio at y bwnc y risg hon yn Saesneg, sef Closed Drug Tracking System. Dwi ddim yn gwybod beth yw'r cyfieithiad ffurfiol ar gyfer hynny. Maddeuwch i mi. Mi sylwch chi yn sgil y drafodaeth flaenorol gaethon ni ynglyn â bwcio yn y ganolfan bod na risg yn agored ar y gofrester yn ymwneud a bwcio yn y gwasanaeth canser. Ac rwy'n mynd i adael y drafodaeth yn fyna i chi gael cyfle i ateb cwestiynau i fi ar y broses ag efallai i gydweithwyr tu hwnt i'r ffaith yn bod ni dal i weithio ar y polisi risg, fy mod i yn ystyried y potensial ar gyfer yr arbenigwyr allanol sydd gyda meddwl mewn i oruchwylio falle y gwaith ar lywodraethiant a gofyn iddyn nhw am eu barn ar y polisi drafft fydd yn cael ei drafod gan EMB, ond sydd yn mynd atyn nhw yn ôl y bwriad yn y papur. Mi adawai yn fyna am nawr.
Diolch Non. Oes na unrhyw gwestiynau neu sylwadau, Vicky?
Thank you. I think what I would, as it does the paper, notes the QSP discussion, particularly on the drug transfer system devices, which was a new risk. I guess we clarified in that discussion in QSP that it had been a long-standing requirement, but not implemented because of financial implications. So I think we just need to consider as a board what oversight have IMs got on any emerging business that's coming through that needs financial support. We hadn't been cited in QSP. So I think the journey from first identifying something that needs financial support and is a risk if we don't implement it, needs to be raised, and we need to be confident as a board that we've got a route for that. So it's just to raise what our discussion has been in QSP.
Yeah, and if I can come in, I think that's a really important point because treatments are developing so quickly at the moment. That, one of the things I think we touched on in looking at the governance review is where is the space for looking ahead? Because it's non-adoption is a risk too, actually. So there's the risk of non-adoption related with the new therapies themselves, and then there is the risk of how that's managed across partnerships. In terms of the patient safety and so on. So I think that's a useful prompt, Vicky, not to forget that in thinking about what fits into the newly configured quality committee. And you may well have a lot more space and time for something more forward-looking and dynamic if we are able to relieve you of some of the other parts of that agenda. Yes, thank you very much. Andy.
It's also going to comment on the closed drug transfer system because, of course, cytotoxics have been around for a long time. So it would be useful to know, well, as well as what's happening in other cancer centres, is this a is this a best practice, a mandatory legal requirement, so on and so forth, so that we know whether, you know, we're ahead of the game or behind the curve on relative to other centres. I wasn't sure about that. I was a bit surprised to see it because, you know, and then I started to wonder, well, you know, is this something that we could or should have done, I don't know, years ago? Is this a new technology? Those things, because I'm not close enough to understand that. So I think that what you said, Vicky, was really helpful. So it's just, yeah, useful to know things like that we don't necessarily know about on board because we're not close to that part of the service, and how they merge and the route tracking, merging technologies essentially.
I agree. And there's a crossover with your subcommittee, isn't there? Yeah. Anne.
So I think this particular risk was on the risk register, but I think the new teams that we have in place reviewed the risk, and the risk evaluation increased with their different lens on things. The benchmarking conversation, I can't remember the detail of it, but I know they did it. So let me.
I think this is in place elsewhere in Wales.
Yeah,
I think
so
we are behind the curve. I think it is you know, it's an oversight. I think the lens of new leadership and reassessing the risk at a local level, you know, escalated it to us as execs, and we looked at it at EMB. We immediately made a decision that this was something that we needed to focus on and resolve. It does require investment of £500,000. It's not a small investment, but the intent to get this in place is absolutely agreed, and we then reported that to quality and safety as well. So I think there is a question of, you know, looking back and lessons from, you know, how long this has been in place and why did this oversight happen and how do we learn from it. So I think that's the position that I think I understand on it.
Thank you. Anything else on that? We should go through the risk register then. Are there any specific issues on the risk register? I have something on risk number 12, which is the shared services, isn't it? So do you think that's kind of it? Or
So 12, it's risk 3656.
posted services 3656, yes. Or is it something that we keep an eye on in terms of the implementation of the review and the risk comes down?
I think
Yes,
that was.
so we can start to be a bit more specific as the work
You'd have
programme.
the evidence route for that.
Yes,
decrease.
thank you. That's really
I'm just-
helpful.
And it has come down since we've been in receipt
Yeah,
of the report.
yeah,
So I am
but it's
reviewing
not
it.
done yet.
No.
Completely right. Yes. Okay. Any other specific comments on individual risks? No?
No.
Okay, that takes us to the board assurance framework. Non again, please.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Fe drafodwyd y BAF yn QSP ag yn SDC, ac mae crynodeb o'r trafodaethau o'ch blaenau chi. Mi ydyn ni fel bwrdd gweithredol wedi bod yn ystyried sylwadau sydd wedi deillio gyfarfod QSP yn benodol o gwmpas y pwyntiau gweithredu yn ei lle i sicrhau'n bod ni'n ymateb i unrhyw, eto Saesneg, gaps in controls. Mae trafodaeth bellach. Mae trafodaeth bellach mae'n blin iawn dy fi, Gareth. Mae trafodaeth bellach wedi cymryd lle ar heini ac maen nhw wedi cael eu diweddaru lle mae hynna wedi bod yn bosibl, ac mi fydda i'n cadw llygad i sicrhau bod ni yn diweddaru nhw yn fusol. Mi oedd trafodaeth ddiddorol yn SDC ynglyn â natur statig y risgiau yma. Mae hwnna eto yn fater mae rhai o'n aelodau annibynnol ni wedi codi. A ni wedi bod yn trafod hynny fel bwrdd gweithredol ac wedi bod yn herio ein gilydd ar hynny. Dwi ddim am siarad yn ormodol ar rhan cydweithwyr, ond dwi'n meddwl bod na synwyr yn bod ni yn eu hadolygu nhw yn fusol, ac bod y lefelau ar hyn o bryd lle maen nhw angen bod. Fodd bynnag yn SDC fe gytuno ni i gynnwys fel rhan o'n hadolygiad ni o risgiau statig i ni yn nawr wneud dwywaith y flwyddyn, yn bod ni'n cynnwys risgiau strategol a baff yn rhan o'r broses honno i ni gael olrhain hanes hynny mewn mwy o fanylder.
Yeah. So I had a question was, are we confident that the NVCC readiness that we were talking about earlier is sufficiently covered here? So I'm not sure about that, actually.
I think it's a very valid point, and I think that
it isn't.
It isn't. No.
And I think further to that, when we discuss the IMTP and the related BAF risks for next year, there is a real opportunity for us to consider our organisational priorities in the context of the development of new strategic risks. We've talked about quite a lot that we must do from April onwards. And evidence from April onwards.
Okay, so that will be included next time then. And then the other thing is on page 122, I think, of 646, we've got PROMS data. So that went live. It's anticipated that reporting will commence early 2026. How early? Do we have a date? No. It's page 122. It's 2.0.
So it's BAF 3.
BAF 3.
Yeah. We've already started.
Because they're important, aren't they? Particularly in the conversation we were having earlier about patient experience and patient feed PROMs and PREMs. Yeah, but Matt.
So the PROMs system was implemented only very recently. Digital platform. There are 3 site-specific team detailed questionnaires. So not only we a PROM questionnaire is the detailed one, so they do the standard health questionnaire for 16 questions, but then there's detailed PROMs around the cancer site. And 2 have been developed across Wales, as I said, and signed off. It takes time because you're trying to get all the cancer leads across the whole of Wales signed.
So to give us a comparative view.
Yeah.
Okay.
So everyone's using the same questions.
Okay.
You know, you can compare then cancer patients' journey across different pathways across Wales, and, you know, the reported outcomes that they're feeding back. So there are 2 in place. They are starting to have information flow into the cancer service now from those, but it's literally probably only 2 months worth of data. So we need to build up a picture, don't we, over the next year, and then we'll have a data set. Obviously using that as clinicians in a live way for us to have a understanding of what it's telling us. We need a lot more years worth of data to start to understand really what it's telling us, because part of it is about how they then changed the way they're designing the treatment plan for those individuals based on their individual feedback around toxicity and how they're feeling. It's probably behind because the implementation of the digital system was slightly actually on the journey now, and we will start collecting data. It's going to go into the PMF as part of the reportable information, but not yet.
Okay. Is it on this, Anne? And then we'll come to Vicky and Gareth.
Due date in here, March 2027.
Is there?
If that's
Okay, thank you. Okay. Vicky?
I think it was just to add to your point about the NVCC risks within the BAF, because I think it's really great that we've got a February development board session that is looking specifically at the BAF and all of the areas that are in the IMT in terms of those headline key strategic objectives and aligning the risks to those, which has always been, the point of discussion at the board or in QSP. So, I don't want to comment any further because we'll have that time to discuss it, but I think it's just important to note that we are having that discussion.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. Gareth?
Diolch Cadeirydd. Dau bwynt sgwrs yna. Cynta yw i gadarnhau un o'r pwyntiau wnaethon ni drafod yn SDC, sef fod sgôr nifer, os nad y cyfan o'r risgiau yma, yr un peth ac ddim wedi newid ers cyfnodau blaenorol. Ac mae eisiau ni ddarganfod p'ne ydy'r camau lliniaru dyn ni yn gymryd yn effeithiol, neu os dylen ni i newid nhw. So dyna'r pwynt cyntaf. Ac yn i'r ail bwynt yw, roedd yna gyfarfod ar ddydd Llun wrthnos hon o gadeiryddion pwyllgorau archwilio ar draws Cymru. Ac un o'r pwyntiau dyn ni'n mynd i drafod mewn gyfarfod yn y dyfodol yw y BAF. Felly dyn ni ddim ar ben yn hunain yn cael traffion gyda y peth yma. Mae yna nifer o awdurdodau eraill yn cael trafferth i ganfod beth ddyle fod cynnwys y BAF ac fel mae'n mwyaf effeithiol i'r byrddau.
Diolch. Eisiau dod nôl â hynny?
Gwerthfawr iawn. Mae'n drafodaeth sydd yn adlewyrchu trafodaeth ymysg grŵp cyfarwyddwyr Llywodraethau'n corfforaethol hefyd. A dwi'n meddwl mae'r ffocws fawr yn fyna yw beth yw'r berthynas rhwng risg a cofrestr risg gweithredol, sefydliadau, a wedyn y risg strategol a profil risg strategol. Di hynna ddim, dwi'n meddwl, yn gwbl eglur i bawb. A dwi'n meddwl mae yna awydd hefyd yr ail bwynt i gadw hi yn sut mae cadw hi'n ddogfen ddynamig sydd yn adlewyrchu beth yw statws, beth yw'r sgocad ar gyfer y sefydliad hefyd. Ydy hi'n addas yn y cyd-destun hwnna? Dwi'n meddwl mae yna farc cwestiwn ynglyn â hynna.
Diolch. Diolch. Okay. So thank you that we are asked to note. So culture and inclusion report next, please. We go to Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. The paper sets out that we've explored this in detail at a number of our committees and had some really good discussions around this. So I'm grateful to everybody who's contributed to ideas and principles in particular, recognising that culture is a board responsibility. And as leaders here in the organisation, we all recognise that. There was an this with the Cabinet Minister at a recent public scrutiny meeting last on the 15th of January, where assurance around our understanding of the issues was provided, as well as our intended approach. I'm going to assume the paper is read. I respect and appreciate and thank you for your patience in its detail. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of issues for the board and then open to questions. So the discovery work that we have done provides us with a really better understanding of the culture across the organisation, and overall it's good, and I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that. Assurance has been provided within our committees, and as I've said, good discussion around better understanding that, and I think that's going to be the key in terms of taking us forward. We've learned some things though from this and from our neutral assessment that took place following some concerns in our cancer service around the way we manage change. And I think there are two key areas of focus that we really need to think about as a board in terms of how we step forward. Firstly, speaking up safely, and secondly, how we manage change well. And I'm really pleased to have David here today, actually, because both of those things impact patients just as much as our staff. And the key to addressing both of those is about building trust and the role of leadership So it's really good for us to have that discussion here today. A couple of things we've done, which I'm going to touch on, a new approach in terms of how we measure impact. We need to understand that whatever we do as an organisation now is going to have the right impact for our staff, to build that trust and to make sure that we manage, particularly as we go into NVCC, the new hospital, so that feels good for our staff and for our patients, and that it's a great first day and a great year 2, 3, 4, and in the future. And most importantly, anything we do based on what we're learning here is co-created with our staff, collectively together. One of the things we've learned is that we need to improve how we listen. So we need to listen to that and actively listen and work with our staff moving forward. And just finally to acknowledge, the board is asked to formally support the recommendation within the report for a wider piece of work connecting governance, culture and leadership to really allow this to be a shared endeavour with us together. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions for Sarah? Hilary?
Diolch Cadeirydd. Diolch Sarah am yr adroddiad. Mae hwn yn fater sydd wedi bod ar agenda'r bwrdd ar is-pwyllgor sawl mis bellach ac cyn eich amser chi gyda Velindre. Ond mae sawl peth yn yr adroddiad i fi sy'n peri tymed bach o ofid bod dim amserlen gyda ni mynd gydag e. Mae lot o bethau sy'n dweud beth sy'n angen wneud a beth ni'n mynd i wneud, ond does dim cynllun yn rhoi amserlen i ni allu monitro p'un yn unigol sicrwydd bod y gweithredoedd hyn yn cael effaith positif. Pryd yn ni'n meddwl byddwn ni mewn sefyllfa o dderbyn amserlen?
And Carl, do you want to come back on that?
Diolch, Hilary. Apologies, I've got some problems putting this on today because I have new glasses on. So Hilary, apologise, but I did hear that. So fully, absolutely, the aim is to ensure that we create a milestone plan once we've had the opportunity to connect and engage with our staff around this issue, to co-create an action plan. That programme of work in terms of feedback around the neutral assessment starts next week. And that will allow us the first opportunity to start conversations in a more formal basis around what we do next. Equally, to give you some assurance, and this was picked up in the other committees, there are some things that we've already done and they're highlighted within the report, and that's been based on our informal walkabouts as executives around the organisation. We're seeking to be much more accessible and visible, and that's where trust gets built, and the ability for us to be able to take quick action on that basis. And some of the feedback we're having is that's welcomed and a positive step forward, but it is my intent to bring back to the board through the committee a full milestone plan once we start that process of co-creation with the staff. This will be a priority for the organisation over the coming year, and it is also the intent for particularly where this culture work connects with the cancer service, that it will be integrated within the NVCC work stream, workforce work stream, so that the director of the cancer service herself will co-lead that with them, because it connects to her staff. So hopefully, Hilary, that answers you some questions. I appreciate I'm not giving you a final date. It will be an ongoing piece of work over the course of the next 12 months.
If I can also come in just before Carl. Oh, Hilary, to come back in.
Well, just on the point of whether it answers the questions, I suppose, are you saying, Sarah, that it's going to a year is going to take effect because you're going to have this listening piece until we have an action plan, or is this listening?
I was going to come in on that. So,
Yeah.
so
Okay,
I think last time we had this discussion, what we said was, let's tighten up what we've got in terms of the metrics. Yeah. And we've seen that in the performance report that came to the board. So the stats that we had, and also the report you've got appended here, there's more sort of crunchy targets and numbers and performance there. I mean, we might need to have a discussion about how we make that more obvious, maybe, that has happened and has changed. and we said that the rest of it needed to be embedded in the service and with people rather than say we're going to do X to you.
Yeah.
We needed to find, and we needed to work side by side with people, say, well, what would make it a meaningful change with you? And that does take a little bit longer. So my recollection is that we agreed to do both things simultaneously, but maybe let's kind of maybe draw that out a little bit in terms of the sequencing of that. Does that make sense, Hilary? I think we said that last time.
Yeah, I think we've had that explanation, but this is a public-facing document that stands alone. And if you're a member of the public looking at this report, you wouldn't gain much assurance about how tight we are around it. I think that's the point I'm trying to make.
I'll bring Carl in.
Yeah, no, just to echo a couple of things. First of all, in fairness to Sarah, as you say, Hilary, she's been here a relatively short time. But back to the chair's point, just to be clear, we do have plans. So the workforce plan is set out in our IMTP for the last 4 or 5 years. I think it's Sarah and everybody's point. I think being honest, have we listened enough and listened to what our staff need enough to make sure those plans are far more precise and answer need rather than what we think? That's the first thing. Do they then connect with impact? So is it a great place to work and how do we know? And the last point really is Sarah's point. That's going to take a little bit longer than just, I think, what we've been guilty of, being honest, coming up with another initiative and just layering on things rather than being far more precise about what actually needs to happen, what we do, and then how we measure that it's making a difference. We've got many plans. I think in many respects, what we might need to do is take some things out of our plans, stand things down rather than add on. We don't need to keep layering. So that's the work that's going on. And as the chair mentioned earlier, it's got to be clearly aligned with the leadership, the culture and the governance piece as well. So we do have plans. And if the public, as your challenge is right, Hilary, go to our IMTP, they will see exactly what our plans are and how we're doing against them. But what we're saying is we might need to tweak them, be far more sophisticated, having listened more to our staff, but actually what they really need rather than just making an assumption.
Okay, Tina, Gareth, and then Jazz, please.
So a comment really more than a question. So I really welcome this. I know we've had lots of conversations and I'm really, really interested in restorative culture. And we've obviously got lots of different cultures, but I think, our plan is already to line up mostly from quality safety perspective, because it is intrinsically linked, isn't it? Your outcomes for your patients and donors and your staff. It is linked, it is not two separate supported workforce that can speak up and work together, isn't it? We'll have better outcomes for our service. So, really keen to work together is to make sure that what we're doing is joined up with what staff are telling us in terms of how we work in that space as well. So really welcome the report.
Beth?
Fe ath yr adroddiad I Wyllgor QSP ag hefyd I STC. Byddwn ni am eglurder, os gwelwch yn dda, ynglyn â pwy fydd yn llywodraethu y fenter hon yn symud mlaen, achos mae'n bwysig I ddilyn ar bwynt Hilary bod ni yn cael pethau yn digwydd nawr, achos mae rhai o'n ni sydd wedi bod yma am gyfnod amser wedi cael y drafodaeth yma lawer gwaith a heb weld llawer o symud ymlaen y gweud y gwir. Felly dwi'n meddwl yn bwysig bod ni'n cael ei lywodraethu yn glos nawr mwyn wneud yn siŵr bod ni yn symud mlaen.
Ie, cytuno'n llwyr, Gareth. Trafodaethau buddiol fel aelodau annibynnol a wedi cytuno bod ni'n sefydlu pwyllgor pobl a diwylliant ac hefyd ymlynu. Felly, a dwi'n credu yr ymroddiad dyn ni wedi gwneud, sydd yn eitha heriol, ond fe nawn ni ydy dechrau ffurfio'r pwyllgorau newydd na I gyd-fynd efo'r IMTP newydd, fel bod hwnna'n lainio lan wedyn. A gobeithio bydd hwnna hefyd yn helpu gyda'r baff a risgiau. Achos dy gen ti fwy o ymlyniant rhwng dy gynlluniau di a dy assurance a outcomes. So, a hefyd bydd e ddim yn berffaith pan dyn ni'n sefydlu fe, ond mae'n well bod ni'n cychwyn arno fe, dydy. Yndi. So dyna'r cynllun. Jazz.
Yeah, thank you. I think my point that I wanted to make was that we have the ability to influence the culture and the leadership of the organization every day in every contact and every meeting we chair or attend. There's something about just not making it a separate thing, but actually making it, you know, part of what we do every day. We have all these amazing opportunities ahead of us with the new hospital, with the, you know, ambition for the blood service. And I think it's about really understanding how we integrate it so that it becomes natural. And the reason to do it that way also is that it's received better. You know, I mean, the staff survey is something that people agitate over having to do. And do you see what I mean? And I think we've been talking about how do we prepare ourselves for the new hospital, for example. How do we engage our staff? We're going to have those opportunities to meet, to talk, to discuss what the issues are. That's where we embed our culture and leadership. And I think we should describe that. I mean, you alluded to it, Sarah, that it happens in parallel. So we're mindful of the issues raised. You know, how do we make sure people can speak up safely about their concerns, for example? And we embark on it in that fashion, because I think we will be more successful. So there's something that we can think about how we maybe articulate and bring back.
And I would say that, you know, from my short experience, don't beat yourselves up too much, because if you think about the engagement the staff have had, you know, the visits to NVCC, the way they feel about it, it's just that we probably are not reflecting that back in the way that we're bringing these reports through. And the assessment of the culture, you know, that we've got, that you see, it's fundamentally quite a sound culture, and you see that when you walk around and you talk to people. So whatever has been going on for the past few years, it's obviously, you know, there's lots of good things that have come out of it. So, but it's maybe a little bit, to Hillary's point, how do we see more clearly what are we actually measuring in one place, and what's happened to that over that time, so that it's partly, and also for the public to see, obviously, because this is a public board. You know, what are those stats and insights saying? But definitely, you know, we're all thirsting for a people committee. I think that is absolutely true. Thank you very much. Oh,
can I just bring in, from a patient perspective and culture, we hear a lot about patients, how important the environment and the culture is. I think the reality of that is patients can also become your eyes and ears to reflect, because they watch your staff every minute of every day, because they're so reliant on them, and they will give you the feedback. There's the mechanism how you get it, but I think the patients is an opportunity for independent voice. And then, if I may, just from my background of elsewhere, the challenge, I think, is to have a plan on culture is important, but the way in which you wish to measure it needs to be quite different to maybe what an organization is used to. So the measure often cannot be reflected on a spreadsheet or a number. It's maybe the point Sarah and Jazz was talking about, the confidence and the trust in this environment when others talk about what they've experienced when they've engaged and spoken to people is probably the truer measure. And you see that with Sarah and I are having a conversation about the staff survey. Patients describe what a wonderful place it is and what wonderful staff they are on that relationship. But for whatever reason, in last year's survey, only 33% of your staff completed the survey, which, to the point you made, isn't it? How do you stop it becoming a chore?
Yeah. Oh,
And I just welcome David's really helpful feedback, because I think I didn't mention, but I you know, what we've also got is Vicky's early point. There's a triangulation of things, aren't there? So we've got the evidence we've got about how our staff feel about working for us. We've got patient, donor, other experience. There's a range of things about lessons learned, how we respond when things don't go right. But I do think that overall, and when you walk around, this is the key test, isn't it? When you walk around and speak to people, you get and it's not scientific, but a support in the evidence, you get a feel for the place straight away. And my feel for the place is a really positive one, which accords with what David's describing, but also we also see things which we know we need to improve. So what we must not be is at all complacent. But I do think that overall, triangulated, we're in a really decent place to push on from. So I know I've never disagree with you, Gareth, but I do think we have done a lot over the last number of years, but we've got more to do. And I think now is the time just to sort of almost pause a bit to understand how we go forward more succinctly rather than sort of add in another set of things which might not add value and may actually distract people from the things we really need to do.
Okay, thank you very much. So that segues us nicely into embedding the donor and patient voice across Velindre. And Tina, thank you for bringing this for early discussion. Very helpful. Take the paper as read, please. And can you focus on the things you want us to input on?
So this paper a version of this paper went to EMB just the start of this week, and Executive Management Board agreed that we needed to plan to go to next Management Board. So some of the ideas and concepts within this paper need to be a tangible plan agreed with both divisions and reflecting the work that has already happened that David's already talked about, and the same in Welsh Blood Service, the really good opportunities. I think the key takeaways that everyone's acknowledged is we do need to join up experience and engagement, and there's quite a lot of silo working. So loads of good work going on across areas, but making sure we triangulate all the information that we're getting from patients and donors, and then how can we evidence that the patient donor voice is genuinely informing how we improve or change, keep our service the same if that's what's needed, isn't it really? So so I think I'm happy to take any comments on that, but there is a plan that agreed by Executive Management Board as well, that at next Trust Board in March we'll bring a kind of an agreed tangible plan that we can monitor.
Vicky?
I think it was just on that point really, because the importance of this paper, having been to other committees and to hear, is that early engagement, seeking views, which is the point of the paper. But within the paper, it talks about a level 3 when there's a draft improvement plan, and the level of assurance isn't what's required at the moment, because to have that level of assurance, you would need a signed off action plan that is starting to be implemented. So I think it's a discussion paper, it's invoking thoughts and ideas to then come up with the substantive plan, which is what you've just referenced. So I think it's one of those that doesn't need a level of assurance at the moment.
Sarah?
Yeah, it connects very well actually to the previous conversation, and I know we've had a lot of conversations about it. One of the things I absolutely have learned and felt from our staff, as Carl has picked up in terms of when you walk around, is that special connection of the desire to do absolutely the best for our patients and for our donors. Absolutely. That for me is the magic sweet spot actually, in terms of how we encourage the patient donor voice with the staff voice.
Yeah.
What we need to do is go and talk to our staff and our patients to see whether or not they agree with that. Yeah. And that actually gives us a combined approach that we could take from a cultural perspective that could really help us focus on that improvement piece. And for me, that takes us quite excitingly to the opportunity of what the cancer service, the new cancer hospital can provide. And in terms of developing the blood service, of being the best in the UK, I think there's a real opportunity for us there. What we've got to make sure we do is that we connect with the real voices here, to ensure that it isn't just our view here, that it's theirs too. So,
and also the patient donor voices get back to the staff in terms of the really positive feedback we're getting. I mean, we established the wall of thanks, didn't we, to make sure that the staff had that. But having really positive feedback off a patient or their family or a donor, isn't it? That's what drives you to do a good job, isn't it? What people say. So are we making sure that we're taking every opportunity through our systems to feed that back to our teams as well, isn't it?
Gareth, do you still want to come in? No. Okay, I'm going to come in here. So I think it's good to have this early on. The one thing I would say was let's not over-engineer. So there are proposals here that every single paper should have an additional paper that says, I mean, I can imagine myself sitting in a clinic going, oh my God, not more paper that I've got to do on this. So I just think I'm going to watch it really, that we're not creating an industry which spends more time writing papers on patient engagement than engaging with patients. And also that we acknowledge that a lot of our frontline staff, they engage with patients all the time. They ask patients all the time. So I would challenge you to really simplify this.
That is the plan, actually, what we discussed at DMB. It needs to be divisionally led and bring it all together in terms of how can we make
it. And vaguely insulting to somebody who's on the front line who is doing this day in, day out, and they're being told that to write a paper they've got to do this. So I would urge us to take great care before doing that. So when it comes back again, what actually, and it's this combined approach that we were talking about earlier between patients, donors, and actually it's not all about having standing armies either. It's about being a bit more agile. So how do we find out in that service, because that's the service we want to change? Or how do we want to find out in that community? Because we know from our clinicians that we're seeing more patients from that community and there's an inequality. So it's about having the expertise within the organisation to say, you know, for instance, when I was in radiology, there are so many more young women with gynecological cancers coming from our most deprived areas. So why is that? Can we talk to them? Can we find out how we make that better? Can we share those lessons? So you're not going to get that from a standing army or from writing a paper. You're going to get that from asking the clinicians, what do we need to find out? How can we make this better? And having a much more agile improvement methodology. So that would be my challenge to you. Because it's so important to us, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. So when do we see the next iteration of this? What happens to this now?
The paper proposes that it comes to March with a plan for approval and
Okay.
action from executive management board was to work with both divisions to see what we need to do in terms of the plan. Okay. And learn from what we're already doing, because we have some really good improvement methodologies that are working day in, day out. So yeah, okay. Right. Committee highlights for discussion. Gareth, audit, please.
Right.
And again, take it as read, but you know.
Yeah, just o'n i am godi un pwynt sydd o dan sydd yn y coch yn yr adroddiad ynglyn â'r ffaith bod ni yn dibynnu ar nifer o bartion allanol un ar Digital Health and Care Record Audit Report ag roedden ni'n teimlo fel ni bod i'r bwrdd, i sylw'r bwrdd, oherwydd mae mor bwysig a mae'n cael gymaint o effaith ar gymaint o bethau dyn ni'n gorfod wneud sy'n codi ar busnes sy'n dod i'r pwyllgor archwilio.
Diolch Gareth, a mi nath hwn godi yn y pwyllgor o flaen yr ysgrifennydd cabinet yn do mwy nag unwaith. Felly diolch yn fawr. Pwy sydd eisiau dod fewn ar hwnna? Cal neu Cal?
Yeah, Cal, two things. Number one, our relationship with DHCW is very positive, and in terms of the work that we've described, if we have parochial for a second, we've got an agreed plan which we're working together on. That's the first thing. In relation to this, the DHCR phase 2, obviously I sit on the National Cancer Leadership Board, and this has been an important and well discussed matter. So I think I'm just double checking. I think there's already agreed funding now for phase 2. It's about working out the business needs. There's a meeting on Friday, tomorrow, and it's on the agenda for me to pick up tomorrow because I'm seeking confirmation there is a phase 2, and we've all set out what the individual business needs are for phase 2. So that's the first piece. The second piece Carl might want to comment on then, broader data integration, because there's a national piece of work going on about national digital architecture, but I'll pass across to Carl Taylor on that one, Gareth.
Yeah, so just to come back in a little bit on the first point. So Digital Health and Care Wales changed the way that they deliver digital health and care systems. They still do it themselves, but they're not doing it in a project or program way anymore. They've moved it into business as usual. So the funding that Carl talks about is with Digital Health and Care Wales to improve the DH systems, but they don't have a project to do it. They have a product approach. Anne and I have a monthly meeting with that product team, and our requirements for phase 2 have gone into that product team, prioritised across the rest of Wales. So it's not that our requirements are lost, and it's not that there's not funding, but in terms of the audit, there is a different delivery mechanism. Now, just need to recognise, I don't think it stretches as far as we want it to go, and I might have comments on that, but there is a delivery mechanism. But through the audit, we're not, unless we do something extraordinary, we're not going to get a DH&CER phase 2 project because the delivery method has changed. Second piece about the data integration, through ministerial direction, the NHS Wales has been working on a national target architecture. So how do we take the systems forward over that 10-year horizon? That work reported back in December and is now having business cases built on the back of it, which will be onto the transformational element about what we might do with digital systems over that 10-year period. And that might be a suitable topic to bring back to a board development or another kind of area, so we've got an understanding of the journey. So I'd say it's a difficult one, to get in terms of the audit position. We said have a phase 2 project. But I think there is some assurance that our requirements are there, Digital Health Care Wales, but I think we would still like some help to push through and make it happen at the pace that we would like it to happen.
You wanted to come back in there, didn't you, guys?
Carl, Ariad. Ro'n ni'n cael ei ddeall bod yna ddau beth. Gyntaf bod angen arian, ac oherwydd bod y arian ddim ar gael, bod y bobl oedd wedi ei gael ei clusgleinio ar gyfer prosiect yma wedi mynd i wneud pethau eraill. Nawr, y drafferth yw, ydy y rhan 2 yn cael y flaenoriaeth o fewn y pethau eraill sy'n digwydd gan DHCW, achos mae'n mynd i gael llawer mwy o effaith arno ni na neb arall os nad yw'r rhan 2 yn digwydd mewn amser, mewn da bryd.
So rwy'n eisiau dod nôl fewn ar hwnna, Carl neu Carl?
Yeah, I will. Just picking up Carl's point. So it's not a funding issue. I think it's a prioritisation and order issue is the point. And that applies to nearly everything across Wales in terms of digital. And so what has been set up to try and facilitate a sense of priority and order, Gareth, is things. One is the DDAT leadership board. So chief execs now have a monthly or bi-monthly leadership board where the intention is to exactly do that. Apply the Once for Wales principles to work through a sensible priority and order where all organisations move forward collectively. The risk with that clearly is that the bit that we need might not be top of the chart, so to speak. So that's where we're actively trying to influence that. I don't think it's now a funding issue. It's a priority and order issue.
So is that capacity? Yeah,
because ultimately DHCW have got finite capacity, and it's not just them. Bearing in mind, it's the ability of organisations as well to manage the service change. So is an internal service change issue as much as the technical aspects of the digital delivery. So I think there are signs of good progress in that DDAT board, but clearly there is more to do. And it's one of the points we actually flagged up in our CABSEC meeting with about priority and order for the blood service in this instance, but it's the same thing that applies to cancer. The other thing which does give us some hope is, irrespective of whatever flavour of government, cancer is a will be a national priority. So I think we can use that to try and make sure that we get as much traction as possible. But that's the current position, Gareth.
Anne?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So in terms of the Velindre priorities for that phase, there are 11 that are specific to Velindre. 2 of them have been completed. There are 9 outstanding. Some of those have been started. There's 20, I want to say 26 or 29 that are other priorities. We are included in some of those, but actually the acutes also need that functionality. I think the thing that we can say is that over the time period that this has been going on, the requirements have changed. For us, I think one of our key requirements is a hospital-initiated referral. And we are asking DHCW, and they have committed to delivering that for us and health boards. So that'll be, I think it's April 20 this year. That will be in place starting in February. So that's, I guess, pulling from capacity that DHCW have within their teams, prioritising our need. And for me and for us, I think that's a critical enabler, because that is the electronic transfer of patients from the health boards to ourselves. It removes risk and it removes the uncertainty.
Is there something here for the board in understanding a bit better some of where we are in terms of these digital priorities linked into, you know, both cancer service and the blood service change? And because I agree, Gareth, you know, it's absolutely fundamentally important, isn't it? Yeah, Carl?
I completely agree. One, I think it would be useful subject to a board development session, but I think more importantly, we've been around this. When we redesign our new committee structure, it's making sure we have a real opportunity to make sure digital and cyber has got a real option in that sort of committee space. We've been around this before. We used to have prior a digital committee. Now, for various reasons, it's not. But I think it's such a fundamental point of future and current clinical service delivery that we need to, I think your point is well made, give it more airtime so we're all completely sighted on what it is, what we need to do, where the risks are, and how we might unlock those. So I think we would really welcome that too.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you, Gareth. Right, we've got consent items for approval, 4 for approval and 10 to note. I think these are people, all Wales policy. So over to you, Sarah. I think we've all read them.
Yes.
So
happy to take any questions if anybody's got any. Obviously, the first 3 are all Wales policies, so collectively consulted across Wales through the All Wales Partnership Forum, and there are 2 local policies that relate to the improvements that we're making across the trust with our local policies. So
are you happy to approve the All Wales anti-sexual harassment policy? Yes. The short-term protection of earnings guidance? Yes. Medical appraisal policy. And then I think it's flexible working policy, isn't it? Yeah. And then nestled in the middle there, we have our own exit interview procedure, which is ours. Is that right?
Just to clarify on, there's, I think within the context of the paper, it's page 6 of that. It's been an extraordinarily long time in its making, because we're saying that it was decided in 23 that it needs to be examined and updated, and the project task and finish group finished in December 23 for obviously 2026. Yeah. But this is a procedure now rather than a policy, and we approved it in QSP. I think it went somewhere else for approval, but we're seeking approval today, so it shouldn't need trust board approval, should it?
No.
So no procedure.
Yeah,
was the point of it.
Noting, agree. Noting this is something I've inherited in that context. So in terms of, just to pick up your point around delay, it's actually something that I picked up with the team in terms of if we had additional resources, how could we expedite some of the reviews of some of these policies in terms of streamlining them quickly.
Yeah, and I know this has been approved, but again, I think something very simple for staff.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure we should be trying to dissuade people from going, there's some stuff in there, I think, uh, don't go. No, it's just like,
Breaking
know
the
what I
song.
mean, neither way.
Actually, to pick up on our discussions earlier, there's something about how we integrate the way for me, culture is about people's systems and processes.
Yeah.
And of course, our policy very much define how it feels
Yeah.
to work in that respect. So it is my intent that we connect all of this eventually, but there is a requirement and a need for us to do for now.
And the manager should know whether it's a case of saying, congratulations, well done, how brilliantly, or are you sure? There's a certain amount of, that person being grown up enough to be able to sort of judge.
Yes, yeah. So I agree. I think there is some support and coaching we need for managers around some of this. And yeah.
And the other thing that struck me was, one of the drivers at a sort of more strategic level is to aggregate the information so that the board can see trends, which is not entirely clear from this policy, but actually is. And I know I should have picked up on that earlier, but I was just rereading it and I was thinking that's the important thing, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tina?
There's just one question for me on this, may have already been done, so I'm sorry, on the anti-sexual harassment policy.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to link that policy at all when it goes with any of the safeguarding policies that we've got?
So yes, because it's legal compliance.
Yeah.
So the policy not only covers the new introduction of the law, so it might be that you've already done that. Again, I've only been here a couple of months, Tina, so it'd be worth us taking that discussion outside.
Yeah, so I was going to take an action to email our safeguarding lead just to see if this joins up work and make sure that they linked in.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do that.
Yeah. So just going back to the exit and interview procedure, which is the only one that isn't an all Wales policy, are there any action? I mean, I know QSP signed it off, but what do we think about, some of that précis version, maybe having a précis version, which is a bit, which is a walkthrough. Yeah, exactly. Half a page for managers. Yeah.
For consumption.
For consumption and use. Yes. A user-friendly version. Yeah, that would be good. Okay, so that's an action. And then that takes us on to NWSSP commitments of expenditure for CEO approval. Is Alison with us?
Alison isn't, but I can see Jonathan is online.
Jonathan.
Calling
Jonathan. Are you there?
It's actually on standby.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Jonathan.
Different Jonathan.
Different. Oh, yeah, but Jonathan Sullivan, I believe, works in procurement at Shared Services, so I'm assuming given the context. So.
Do we have anybody from Shared Services with us? Okay, all right.
Trying to fight Jonathan off. He's disappeared.
I didn't mean to do that. Apologies, Jonathan, for the record.
Sure, it was just coincidental.
Calling Alison in today.
There's Alison.
Hello, Alison. Welcome. Croeso.
Thanks, pawb.
Alison.
Hello.
Right,
How can I help?
Well, we've got how can we help you? So we've got a number of papers here from you for approval. So the committee's obviously read the papers, and what we're being asked is to, should we take them one by one? Starting with the influenza vaccination purchase. And the action here is the expenditure for required volumes of influenza vaccine product and to authorise the subsequent signing of the purchase order by the chief executive. So can I first of all ask you, is there anything in particular you want to draw our attention to here, Alison?
Nothing over and above what's set out in the paper, Chair. I do have my colleague Jonathan Irvine on standby for this item if there was any points of detail that members did want to raise, because he has led on this particular one from within Shared Services, but he is waiting in the wings. I just need to buzz him.
Okay. Gareth.
Just to cefndir i hwn, mae papur yma wedi dod yma'r blaen, dwi'n meddwl, ynddo fe?
Ma' hwn yn
Ag
Alison doesn't have
I don't have the
translation.
translation. Sorry, Gareth.
apologies, Alison. Am I right in thinking that this paper has come here before and it was, we were waiting for a QIA, or is this for the next year?
This is for the next year, Gareth. So this is the trigger, if you like, of the extension for the next year in readiness for, yes, it is a bit strange, but ready for next year's flu vaccination campaign.
and specifically for procurement.
Yeah.
Specifically for the procurement of the drug itself, yes, the vaccination, sorry, itself, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Vicky and then Jazz. Oh, Jazz, is it on this particular point?
I think it was just to say the QIA is attached, but it isn't signed.
Yes, so
we need to address that.
Dr. Alcalado's been away, so she is back this week. So I think we had agreed offline that we would get that across to you now that Ruth is back today. She's flown in today, but her office has had sight of it, Jazz. So we have had somebody within the team look at it before it came across to you, but Ruth has been away, so she's back today to physically apply the signature.
Yes.
And in relation to all of these items, there is a QIA. We've come a very long way now. We've got a process in place. It's just there are some timing issues on those. So we will get them signed off as soon as possible, but the content is here for your consideration too. Thank you to Alison and the team for doing that.
Thank you very much. Vicky and then Laura.
I think my point was very similar. It was just to reiterate that it's really refreshing to see all the proposals in a timed way that is really helpful to feed into the process for purchase. The QIA's also been very comprehensive. So thank you, Alison and team.
Great, I'll feed that back. Thank you.
Lauren?
Yeah, thanks, Alison. Just to join up with the previous discussion on 25-26 to confirm that Shared Service Partnership Committee have approved the programme of work being led by NWSSP.
Yes.
That bit was missing for this year's programme, wasn't it? Just to confirm that is in place now for this.
So in our November meeting, the SLA that covers the service provision elements was indeed considered and approved by the Partnership Committee.
Thanks very much.
And in that context, there's a bit of a timing issue because it went to Shared Services Partnership Committee on the 22nd, I believe, of this month. And so, but it is covered in this, in all the cover papers where necessary.
Sorry, Gwen, the SLA went back in November's committee meeting. The SLA did, went, and this paper also went to Partnership Committee last week, yes.
That's it, yeah, cool. Thank you, Alison.
Gareth and then Carl.
Thank you. So the recommendation in the paper is that we're asked to approve the expenditure for required volumes. Just for clarification, that is it being funded by Welsh Government? So is there something from Welsh Government that supports the proposed expenditure?
So it's 100% funded by Welsh Government. Yes, Gareth, the drug will be funded by Welsh Government in and out. No risk to Shared Services or to the Trust or recharging to any NHS organisation.
You need to reflect that in the paper.
Is that not explicit in the paper? I do apologise. That's I'm just turning through my. I haven't got the bundle electron.
I missed it, Alison. I'm not sure it's there.
I'm just checking because I thought there was a letter from Welsh Government in the bundle that came across. So I haven't got the electronic version, folks. So I'm just flicking through.
I don't think.
Okay, listen, we'll make sure that that's there. Okay,
yes,
that's fine.
Yes, you have my absolute assurance that this is 100% funded by Welsh Government, but there will be a piece of paper that I can forward on to once I step outside this meeting. No problem.
Okay. We'll capture that in the minutes and as an action as well. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you.
Carl, did you want to come in?
Only quickly, just Laura's point, and just for our board to be aware. Obviously, I sit on the partnership committee, and I endorsed the SLA, the delivery bit in the November meeting with Alison and colleagues. So this is the procurement. We've also signed up as a partner to the delivery programme because last year, if you recall, they came as a single piece in the paper and we debated that at length. But just to assure you that from what I've seen, I've got assurance that all the things in place that we would expect, subject to how we then implement the shared services recommendations. But this is as is, so I can give you assurance that I was on that committee.
Okay, there we are. That's approved then, and we move on to the expenses contract extension for initial period of 2 years from August of this year, with an option for another 2. So again, can I ask, are there any questions on this paper, or indeed, Alison, first of all, is there anything you want to draw to our attention?
Just to say, Chair, that the contract for e-expenses and Track, the recruitment software, are very similar. They sort of can't go hand in glove to the extent that they're both contract renewals. And the reason that we are choosing to do a contract renewal at this point in time is because, as Sarah will be aware, we're now in the process of rolling out and implementing the replacement for ESR, the Future Workforce Solution, and therefore we do require to continue the existing software to continue for a period of time to enable that transitional phase. The arrangements for the replacement of ESR is a UK, England and Wales level agreement, and that was only really confirmed in November. So we have been waiting for that clarification and confirmation at a UK level, and therefore that's why we've put in these arrangements. But they're very similar. Taking the 2 items together might be helpful.
Very much. Gareth?
Just a question, Alison, which appears in both this and the Track paper, I think, about, it refers to the Shared Services Partnership Committee being requested to approve this contract renewal at the meeting on 22nd of January. I'm assuming that Shared Services Committee did approve the entry into these contracts, and just if you can assure us of that, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yes, I can confirm that, and Carl was there as well. So yes, we agreed both those contracts.
I was just going to add, I mean, there's one thing for our board, just to be clear on, at that meeting, and Alison was there, I did make the point, Alison, didn't I, that at the earliest possible opportunity, we want to be able to nail down when essentially we could get ESR lined up, because we don't really just want to walk into the 2+2. We want to try and resolve that at the earliest possible opportunity. And once we get clarity on the delivery plan, we'll be able to understand. Yes. We won't need +1+1. So I made that point at the committee meeting.
Yeah, that is my hope, and what my ask has been of procurement is that we've allowed for the 1+1 element to give us the flexibility we need to taper off effectively the arrangement.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. I raised the point.
Yeah. And you're suggesting we take the e-expenses system alongside that and approve them together, is that right?
They're very similar sort of circumstance and context, Chair, yes.
There we are then. We're happy to approve, I think. Yes, we're happy to approve.
Thank you.
Okay, and that takes us on to the Track recruitment contract extension.
That's the one I thought we were.
Oh, sorry.
They're both related.
Okay. Health Courier Services Fleet Insurance Annual Premium.
So this is an arrangement that I know Carl and my colleague Jonathan Irvine had a conversation around before Christmas. This is year 3 of an existing agreement, and it is a request to give authorisation to Carl as Chief Exec to approve the PO, because the value is in excess of 250k. The details of the arrangements are set out in the paper.
I think my query was just the timing of the approval, because I could see, Alison, it had expired the 1st of December 25 and goes through to the 30th of November 26. So it's why it hasn't come to us before. So, I can see it tides over from one to the other, but actually approving it should be before it expires.
I don't disagree with you, Vicky, and I think this is one of these things that we've picked up as a consequence of us looking more closely at the arrangements in terms of how we've handled things in previous years. Because this is part of an all Wales contracting arrangement, we haven't got a separate contract just for shared services. In previous years, when the contract had been approved at an all Wales level, we had just been agreeing the POs on a year by year basis, and the Chief Exec of Velindre had been approving them on the basis of the All Wales contract being in place. I think given the conversations and discussions we've been having more recently, and Carl and Jonathan discussed it, it was felt appropriate that we probably do need to bring this to the board to enable the board to give authority to the chief exec to sign the invoice on this occasion. It is year 3 of a 3-year contract, so going forward, we'll make sure we capture that at the start of the arrangement. I think, Carl, is the spirit of the conversations you've had with Jonathan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really helpful, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Just to add to that, yeah. So thanks, Alison. It's been really constructive. I guess my sense was I asked for the board paper from a couple of years ago, so I couldn't find it, and we established there wasn't one. I said we can't change going backwards. What we can do is put in place arrangements going forward. Therefore, I felt it important we brought it to this board in January, and I thank Alison and Jonathan. But we also asked, was there a risk if it wasn't approved then? What was the bigger risk? And there wasn't. So that's where we got to.
Thank you. So are we happy to authorise? Yes, thank you very much. That takes us on to forensic and statement reconciliation software. Alison, anything on this?
No, so this is actually a service that I run for shared services. The brand name is Fiscal Tech. So we have taken the opportunity to align 2 contracts here. One was around supplier statement reconciliations, and the other one is more around forensic software. Both these softwares play a crucial role in terms of our fraud prevention and error detection work, which Gareth and Vicky will be familiar with from our conversations at Audit Committee. I think Carl raised the query around the lead-in time for planning. So I have checked back on that since you raised it at committee, Carl. And we did start the conversations around the procurement exercise for this back in February 2025, which would have been a good 12 months in advance of the expiry of the contract. But I think the learning here for us as an organisation, and probably you get the same yourselves, is that with digital procurements in particular, and because of the complexity sometimes in the lead-in time for changing on a digital system, we probably do need to even think further ahead of that in our planning cycle. But I did confirm with procurement that we had started to have those conversations a good 12 months in advance, but it still didn't prove to be sufficient if we were going to do something different.
I think, Alison, just a query on the QIA, and I know obviously Ruth coming back off annual leave, but for this paper, there was some narrative in 2 sections of the QIA, scores in the rest of them, but with no narrative to support it. So it's just something that maybe Ruth can have a look at. They were blank, and I didn't know whether it was. It didn't need a narrative, but it would be helpful to put not applicable or.
Yeah, I'll take that on board.
However you want to describe it. Yeah, thank you.
I think for some of these contracts, Chair, it's quite a challenge around some of the QIA, because you've sort of really think about what is the impact from a quality perspective. And as we're aware from the work that Ruth's been leading on internally, our obligations with regards to the duty of quality for non-clinical services is as important as it is for clinical services. So it is a constant learning and improvement area for us.
Yeah. So it's a good discipline then, isn't it? Yeah. Good. So, and finally, I think remote advice and guidance system contract renewal.
Yeah, so this is
contract.
Alison, I mean. Yeah, so this is the contract that we're taking forward on behalf of NHS P&I. They are the leads operationally. It is a contract extension of 12 months. The Trust Board already approved the contract originally back in 2022. At that time, the funding for the extension was not in place. Welsh Government have now agreed to fund a further 12 months. That's in the bundle. And so we're just asking whether or not you can approve the extension for 12 months on the basis the funding is now in place, and also authorise the Chief Exec to be able to approve the PO because it exceeds 250 grand.
Questions? No? Happy? Okay, we're happy to authorise that too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to everybody who has worked together to streamline this process and, to make it efficient and effective, but also give everybody the opportunity to look at that quality impact, which I think is really, really important, actually. So thank you. Please pass on our thanks, Alison.
Thanks, Chair. And I have received from Jonathan Irvine the confirmation letter from Welsh Government on the flu vaccine, so I will send that directly over to you, Non. Anybody else I need to copy in on that just for record?
No, I'll make sure that it's on the record. Thank you, Alison.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you all for your time today.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
The 6.3.0, which is summary of chairs urgent actions, none.
Here for ratification, both items were shared services items. I have nothing more to add.
Happy to ratify.
Yep.
Yep. And then we go on to 6.4.0, which is the Nurse Staffing Levels Act. Hina, this is the annual report for us to approve, isn't it?
The 6 monthly reviews, all the information is in the paper. Just to note, there's been an increase in acuity and bed occupancy, but we were in line with the 25B requirements of the Staffing Levels Act. So I'm happy to take any questions, but issue for approval. Thank you.
Out of interest, what lies behind that acuity increase?
So there's they're not really sure in terms of why. Can't see why there has been that acuity increase, but patients on the wards needed more time. We're about to assess whether the difference has been made in putting more healthcare support workers on in terms of the skill mix. But there's kind of an acuity tool that we use to measure that. So it's kind of they're looking at why that is. But I think generally patients are just coming in more unwell. But, you know, the ward, there's been a ward review, they're taking on the actions of the ward review. And
I think we've also had a review of the first floor wards, processes and things. So I think there's more rigor around reporting as well. So I think that's going to have contributed to capturing the data.
But I think it's in line with what we are seeing clinically.
Yes.
And the requirements and the expectation has all increased.
Yeah. Thank you. Vicky?
I think just a query on the report, and apologies, Tina, because I could and should have picked it up in QSP. But I think the wording that we use here in terms of no harm in terms of review. So we've heard in QSP a lot of detail about falls and the concerns about falls earlier in the year. Pressure ulcers, which is still ongoing, and there's a more detailed review, which QSP is receiving back in March. But we've said no harm as a result of staffing.
Yeah.
But however, we've changed the skill mix as a reflection of that acuity. So I think we just need to be very careful with our wording, because we are very clear that actually the pressure ulcers that have been acquired have caused harm. So I think we just need to have a detailed discussion and review of that, because we have, as a result of that acuity, changed the skill mix.
Yeah.
So I think it's just clarity from a board point of view that actually, you know, it's the legislative requirement to outline harm as a result of staffing. That was where the legislation came in. However, you know, you can't duck the harm when there is harm. So I think there's just a balance of actually how you review that, how it gets reported, and how we then consider it as a board. So it's just a point, and apologies that I should have picked it up from QSP.
And I think the terminology associated with that as well is on our DataX Once for Wales system, there is a kind of drop-down box in terms of is this harm attributed to the Nurse Staffing Act in terms of are you below your established level? So it's probably a kind of performance indicator that people use, because we can capture that information within our system. And again, isn't it, you know, numbers and acuity, you need to look at that in terms of your acuity, but I'll take that forward, Vicky, in terms of how that's reported.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So we're happy to approve that. And then we have a number of items to note, which we'll go through just by exception. None, first of all, the Trust Seal report.
Yes, happy to take any questions on that if required, but it's
No, note that. Public Quality Safety and Performance Committee highlight report. Nothing.
that's noted.
NVCC Project Scrutiny Subcommittee, Hilary.
I don't have anything to report unless somebody's got any queries. Take it as read.
Yeah. Strategic Development Committee, Lindsay's not here. Anything other? No. Okay. Public Charitable Funds Committee highlight report. Well, that's me. There was one thing here. So in the report, we say that the board needs to approve the annual report, but it's down here for noting.
It is a matter for the committee to approve the annual report
Yes.
and it's here
Yes, okay,
to note.
that's
So
fine.
that is a mistake. So we'll make sure that we correct.
Yes, okay. So, very good report, very well presented. Happy to note? Yes, thank you. Shared Services Partnership Assurance Report.
I think one point here, which is to do with trams. So Carl and I had this conversation earlier this morning, but the trams discussion that happened at the partnership committee may not have flagged that there has been a slippage in the tram project as a whole.
Again.
So this is because the outline business case is not going to make it to full business case and be submitted before the pre-election period. And it's going to be postponed until it's going to use that time to work its way through the process and signed off sometime in the expectation. So at the moment, my assessment of that, and I did question it at the last trams workshop, is that it will be a minimum of 5 months delay. Now that doesn't have an impact on Velindre per se, because we will have a standalone septic unit and we can work around that. It may have an impact on some of the other acute providers. So I was surprised that there wasn't more of a reflection of that in this. And later on, there's another paper that I think that this is either amber or red, depending on the shared services risk assessment of projects, because we're talking about nearly half a financial year, that would have at least a material impact, if not a significant. So I think we just need to reflect that.
Reflect that in the minutes.
I think we need to reflect that in the minutes, and we probably need to have a conversation
Cover them as well.
with shared services, because somehow our processes are not pulling that through.
Not explicit, is it? It's just you'd expect, you know.
It's all very quiet. Yeah. And I don't think there's been a formal communication to any of the providers. I've obviously had conversations with Cardiff and Vale because of our intention to provide a clinical trials and advanced therapy unit together in one of the aseptic rooms in
Okay, so we need to escalate that back up to that's an action. Okay, Gareth.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Gai ofyn os gall anfon nodyn y tai o'r cefndir, oherwydd mae yna bwyllgor archwilio NWSSP mewn pythefnos, dwi'n meddwl, ac dwi'n siŵr bydd hyn yn bodi bryd hynny, ac felly fysa'n o fydd cael y cefndir o'n ochr ni.
Yes, of course. And I think that might be the other paper that I saw and later on I've got it in the notes.
And the next paper is indeed NHS Welsh Shared Services Partnership Audit Committee highlight report. So anything?
So just
Indeed.
trams.
Oh yes, sorry, I didn't see that.
No, I'm concerned to hear that, because from the impression from the papers that things are going smoothly. So, and then you said it doesn't, trying to get times right in my head, you said it doesn't have an effect on, but of course it runs right into the opening of the new cancer centre and the link to the Cardiff and Vale clinical trial supply. And just you seem, it seems that you're confident that it's not going to impact Velindre and Velindre patients' delivery of service.
Yes. So if you remember, we made provision for Velindre and VCC unit to accommodate our baseline aseptics. And that is our plan in terms of moving into the new unit. The other portion of our aseptics is outsourced. So we will continue to buy that element of our aseptics in until which time the Southeast hub is up and running. I mean, there's likely to be a financial impact, but we need to assess that. think that was fairly cautious, full stop, in terms of trams. So we can muddle that through. But my concern is for Cardiff and Vale. We have some conversations. I think they feel they have a mitigation in terms of their aseptic unit for a period of time. However, it has financial impact. So I think we need to have those conversations with them as well to understand how we need to support them.
Yeah, that's helpful. And yes, right, flagging.
Yeah.
Escalating that is important.
And the trams team may feel that they can recover some of that, but that's not a discussion that we've had, and it's not been mapped out yet. So I think they're dealing, to be fair, they are dealing with a number of unknowns with the election, the new government, etc. But the delay in getting the full business case over the line is the root cause.
So there's an action to escalate. Matt, you want to come in here as well?
Minor point, so not confused. Someone needs to insert NWSSP in the title of the paper. I don't think it's the actual Velindre audit.
Yes.
Yes, to us, but
Yes,
Yes,
you're right.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I think unless there's anything else on that, we'll go on to 7.8, trust-wide policy approvals update. To note again.
So here to note, there are matters for QSP to approve according to delegation.
Very much on that. Charitable funds, we just talked about the annual report, which is for us to note, it has been approved by Charitable Funds Committee. Health Technology Wales strategic plan, again, to note.
To note, has been subject to public consultation until the 23rd, if I've got my dates correct. I've agreed, so Gareth and I will be, and some of us will be meeting with the management team at H2W to discuss the content before it comes back here to the board for final approval.
Thank you. Gareth?
Just yn gadarnhau, gyfyn ni drafodaeth ynglyn â hyn yng nghyfarfod Pwyllgor SDC, ac just eisiau eglurder ynglyn â beth mae HTW a faes maen nhw yn gweithredu. Dyna'r bwynt sydd mewn un hanesyddol, ac rwy'n meddwl bod ni wedi cyrraedd dealltwriaeth gyda nhw, ond dyw'r cynllun yma, cynllun strategol yma, ddim yn adlewyrchu'r dealltwriaeth yna.
Diolch, Gareth. OK, wel dwi'n falch bod chi'n craffu ar hynna. Diolch yn mawr. Any other business? I haven't received any notice of any other business. Is there any other business? No? Case. I'm going to draw this meeting to a close. Thank you very much, colleagues, for all your contributions today. And I'm going to ask the board to adopt the following resolution. The board is asked to adopt the following resolution: that representatives of the press and other members of the public be excluded from the remainder of this meeting, having regard to the confidential nature of the business to be transacted, publicity on which would be prejudicial to the public interest in accordance with section 1, subsection 2 of the Public Bodies Administration to Meetings Act 1960. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Hello, Chris. When are you starting private element?
3 o'clock.
Are you
3
having a
o'clock.
break?
Yes,
You're having
3 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see you at 3,
Yeah.
Hilary.
Okay.
Okay, Hoyle. Ta-da. Ta-da.